Welcome, everybody. We would like to start off our evening tonight. It's going to be a little different order. This is our regular scheduled council meeting, but the Brigham City Council also functions as the RDA board, which is a redevelopment agency, and the MBA, which is Municipal Building Authority. And we have yearly public hearings that need to be accomplished to set the budget. And they usually don't take long, and so we put that at the beginning of the meeting. And so we would like to start tonight, though, with an invocation, a reading, or a thought, and I will go ahead and do that. And then we've invited Councilmember Jensen to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll move right into our redevelopment agency meeting. All right, I'm going to say a prayer. That's okay. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this evening. We're thankful to be gathered as a city council and as citizens, as staff and employees, to be recognized, give input, to deliberate, to discuss, and debate what's on tonight's agenda. We ask that thy spirit will be here in attendance, that we will be able to speak our minds honestly and openly, to come to a decision and know thy mind and will for Brigham City. We're grateful for our community. We're thankful to be moving into summer and be able to be outdoors and with our families and participating more in our community as the weather permits. Please bless those that aren't able to be here, that they will be safe. We are mindful of our men and women of our emergency services, police and fire. Please be with them. Those that are on shift, that they will be protected. They will be also thought about by our community and respected. These things we pray for and ask, Father, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Please rise and repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are in our redevelopment agency meeting, and so I will be functioning as chairman. And so we need a motion to approve the minutes from May 6, 2025. So moved. We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have a second? Second. That's by second by Councilmember Hipp. Is there any discussion on the minutes before we go to a vote? All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. We need a motion to open a public hearing in consideration of resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025 final budget. But prior to that motion, we'll invite our city finance director, Tom Cotter, to give us a little bit of background.
Thank you, Mayor. Chairman, that's right. And you're all now members. So tonight is the adoption of the final budget for fiscal year 25-26 of the Redevelopment Agency of Brigham City. There have been no changes inside of this budget since it was first presented by Chairman Bott back in his presentation. So just a quick reminder what the RDA is. There are project areas throughout the city. Those usually have a specific purpose that was set aside. The tax entities that are participating in those, they do not keep their property taxes. They've entered into agreements with the RDA to pass those onto the RDA, the tax differential. And then the RDA has participation agreements with whatever business may be inside those project areas. One of the ones we have is the West Forest EDA, so that has to do with Niagara. We have the Northwest EDA dealing with Nucor Building Systems. We have the Campus District dealing with the Utah State campus down there. So those are some of the different RDA project areas that are existing. And once that project area ends, then all of the value comes back onto the city's tax roll, and those property taxes are then returned to the city and the other participating entities. Like last year, the X20 RDA ended, it terminated. But we still have a budget for it. The reason we still have a budget is that project area accumulated fund balance during its time of operation. We still have 5 years to continue to expend those funds appropriately. And so in this year's budget, we continue the substation and the intersection work. they're associated with the X-20 project area. So with that, if the members of the RDA have any questions, I'd be happy to answer, but pretty much what it is.
Any questions, council? If there isn't any, we would love a motion to open a public hearing for the consideration of a resolution adopting the fiscal year 25-26 final budget for the RDA.
I just have one question. Is this budget publicly posted throughout the year somewhere?
Yeah, so it's all in the same packet as the other one that the mayor presented,
Regular
But
city budget.
the regular city budget, but it also will be on the state auditor's website, and it will be underneath the RDA there. We have to post all of this stuff to the state auditor's website, transparency. So they're all available.
So we don't have it posted under our RDA
No,
department?
no, we just have it underneath
or anything?
the website as just the Brigham City budget.
Mayor, I move we open the public hearing. There's no other questions. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. We are now in a public hearing specific to the consideration of the resolution adopting the fiscal year 25-26 final budget. We invite any and all that would like to comment on this in this public hearing specific to this resolution to please come up to the podium and state your name, where you're from, and we'd love to hear from you for up to 3 minutes. Board, seeing as though there doesn't appear to be any comments, I would love a motion to close public hearing. So moved. We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Hipp. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is now closed. We can now have an action to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025-26 final budget in the RDA. We have a motion by Councilmember Smith to approve the resolution. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. I'm sorry, Board Member Smith. A second by Board Member Jensen. Is there any questions or clarifications that need to happen about the resolution prior to our vote? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call. Thank you. Roll call. We'll start with Board Member Hipp and move to his right.
Days and I.
Jensen's and I.
Robbins and I?
Jeffries and I. Thank you. Motion passes. We now need a motion to adjourn from Redevelopment Agency and open municipal building authority meeting. So moved. We have a motion by Councilmember Smith and a second, I'm going to say, by Councilmember Hipp. Board members, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. All right. We need to approve the minutes from June 20th, 2024. I move we approve the minutes. We have a motion by Board Member Jensen. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Board Member Jeffries. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We will now have a hearing, again, a yearly budget hearing for the Municipal Building Authority. This is a resolution adopting the fiscal year 25-26 final budget that was contained in the mayor's budget. I'll invite Mr. Cotter again to give any background that council may need. I'm sorry, board may need.
Yeah, so the Municipal Building Authority, it's an interesting thing that is carved out of state code that allows the city council to create this authority. Its whole purpose is to finance the construction, improvements, or acquisition of other municipal public buildings, infrastructure, things like that. Well, the one we're talking about now is that it was used to help finance the Academy building project. So there's been no changes in it since it was presented to the board, or whatever function you're functioning underneath in this meeting. Just for your knowledge, there's still about $1.5 million in outstanding debt. It's scheduled to be retired in 2035.
Thank you, Tom. Board, do you have any questions for Mr.? Not, we'll entertain a motion to open a public hearing for the consideration of resolution adopted fiscal year 25-26 in the Municipal Building Authority's budget. Move we open a public hearing. Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Jensen and a second by Board Member Smith. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. We now stand in a public hearing for the consideration of a resolution adopting the fiscal year 25-26 final budget. Once again, we encourage all those who would like to make public comment, particular and specific to this resolution, to please come to the podium, state your name, where you're from, and please take up to 3 minutes in your comment. Mayor, I move we close the public hearing. We have a motion to close public hearing by Board Member Jensen. Do we have a second? Second by Board Member Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now out of a public hearing. We can now move to an action, which is to approve the resolution adopting the fiscal year 25-26 final budget. We have a motion by Board Member Smith. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Board Member Hitt. Is there any questions for Mr. Cotter prior to going to a vote? We'll go with a roll call. We'll start with Board Member Jeffries and move to his left. Jeffries is an aye.
Robbins and I.
Right. That's an aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Now need a motion to adjourn to our regular council meeting. So moved. I have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have, or Board Member Jensen? Do we have a second? Second by Board Member Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Welcome to our regular council meeting. Sorry about that. I appreciate everybody's patience. We do have our first item of business is to approve and have a motion to accept the consent items. There are 2 of them.
Motion to approve consent items.
A motion to approve consent by Councilmember Troxel. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Jensen. Is there any question to those 2 items? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Let's see, we'd like to have some employee recognitions. We've had some hires we want to recognize. We would like to thank and recognize 2 new appointments to the library board. We appreciate these 2 individuals and their willingness to serve their community. Ms. Tiffany Ballingham and Mr. Mike Adams. I believe we've got a couple of them here. We have, well, maybe not. I just saw the library director, so I thought maybe they were here, and that's fine. I'm sure they're busy. It was fun. Mr. Cotter and I went to the board meeting a couple of weeks ago, and it was nice to see that there were several names that had been presented to serve on the library board, and we appreciate Ms. Bellingham and Mr. Adams in answering the call to serve their community there on the library board. I know that our library employees and director, librarians will appreciate their participation in that and their guidance. We now would like to, there's some employees that we want to recognize. We've had some new hires. Aubrey Ann Loving in the police department. She's our animal control officer. Is she here, Chief? Okay. And then just by way of information, this is always a fun time of year for our city as we do onboard and hire quite a few of our youth and seasonal employees for the pool and parks and rec and the cemetery. And just as informational, we've onboarded currently 128 individuals to work for the city for the season, and we look forward to having them with us. We'd like to invite Chief Thueson to come up, and we have a new hire in the fire department, and we need to have a badge fitting.
Mayor, thank you. Council members, it's good to be with you again this evening. I'm excited to be able to present to you our new fire marshal tonight. So I'm going to ask Alec to come up here and join me up here, if you would. Not that scary. So I want to introduce to you our new fire marshal for Brigham City. This is Alec Henson. or Hansel, I'm sorry, I knew that too. He joins us from Weber Fire District. We're excited to have him coming to be here, part of our team, and excited for the things that he brings with him to us. So along with his fire marshal capabilities in the fire prevention world with fire investigations and all those kind of related things, code enforcement. He also is also a juvenile fire setter intervention specialist. That's a lot to get out. And then he also is a law enforcement officer. So we're working with our police department and coordinating some of that that will take place with him being able to do that function as well and be able to be a resource in that capacity for us as well. So we're excited to have him here, and I've probably missed a whole bunch of things that you know are on his resume and that he's able to do and that he brings forward. We're excited for his enthusiasm and what he's going to offer in our department as far as fire prevention. Oftentimes, fire prevention isn't talked a lot about, but in the world of the fire service, if we look at response versus prevention, our dollars are much better spent in the prevention area, because if we can avoid those injury accidents or those fires in the first place that shut down businesses or cause injury or fatalities, then we're much better off. But it's also one of those things that's hard to quantify what we actually prevent. But we know that it does work. We know that it does prevent injuries and accidents from occurring. So we're excited to see how he develops that program out in that team in the future and what he brings here. So our first order of business is to get him sworn in and take the oath. So we'll have our city recorder do that. First off, you have anything you want to say? I'm going to put him on the spot.
No, sorry. I would say he's already participated in our city service project that we had this week, and we appreciated seeing our new employee out there participating and supporting us. And I want to, in that vein, thank everybody that supported that. Cleaned up the gore. So if you don't know what a gore is, that's the area between the interstate and the off-ramp. It's called a gore. And so we do that on 4th Street, where traffic isn't as heavy as 1100 South. Thank you.
Yeah. And along with that, we've kind of thrown him right into the thing. So he's been out working since day one. I think your first day last Friday, I had an inspection at 7 in the morning. So yeah, so we started him early and started him going right off. So yeah, so Christina will take care of the oath and we'll go from there. I'm gonna move out of the way so you can see. For the second part of this, as tradition goes in the fire service, and you've seen this before, we'll have the badge pinning, and his wife, Kinsey, is going to do that along with his son, Everett. So we'll invite them to come up and do that part.
Sweet mullet he's got going on there, too. I can't wait till he has a mustache like his dad. You're more than welcome to stand up and get a better angle if you'd like. Thanks, Chief. You got something else for him there?
Kind of gifts, but work related
Okay.
stuff. So some bling to go on his collars here. So with the fire marshal is a lead in our department, so bugles for his collar there, and then 2 service stars for your years of service. Your shiny new fire helmet there. Okay. Congratulations.
Thanks, Alex. All right, before I get too far ahead, ladies and gentlemen, I need to apologize. I neglected the appointments to the library. I didn't have on the agenda, even though I knew about it, and I failed to get council approval. So,
DJ, let's put it on the 17th under consent. It wasn't agended, and so I think we're good. We can just put it on the consent item on the 17th.
I was just gonna go back and get council permission to.
I'm nervous about doing it without it being
Without a public-
agended.
okay.
Yeah, so.
Thank you. July. All right. This is a night of public hearings, and so we would like to kick it off with our consideration of a resolution to adjust the fiscal year 24-25 budget. We'll invite Tom Cotter to present the adjustment.
All right, council. So this is the year-end budget revision for the current year we are in. And what it is, we just go through and we look at and make sure that departments are covered, that the expenditures that we've done throughout the year, that we now are reconciling out the appropriate revenues and making sure everything's copacetic for budgetary reasons. And also, it's important in this part of the resolution that you'll approve with this, it allows me that the general funds allowed us cap, right? It's by state code, it can only have so much in there. Because we don't know what that is quite yet, this resolution is important because it says, hey, if we exceed that cap, I then am allowed, authorized by the council, to move that money over into our general capital project fund. Really, that's the important part for the council to be aware of. If you have any questions on the list that you should have received via email, let me know. But really, the only thing that is going to go hit fund balance in the general fund is the vehicle for our new fire marshal. So that is the only thing there. All the other adjustments, there's an offsetting revenue, whether it be through sales tax. We have some interest income in there, just some different payments that we've received throughout the year, different grant monies that we've received that we're now tying in. So the one thing I wanted to maybe draw to the council's attention is we continue to see a high facility maintenance cost throughout the city. As you are aware, we have our facility fund, and we continue to see higher costs there. And actually, in the budget that is your tentative budget, we'll talk about a little bit later, we included a higher amount in there. And those costs are then allocated out to the departments. And now part of this entry is proposed adjustment is trying to true up the allocation versus what we're actually seeing now throughout the year. The budget's just based off of history, this is what we expect to see, then reality happens and they never are the same. So allocation facility is just making sure we got the right buckets with the right money. But with that, does the council have any questions about the current year-end budget revision?
For the public, just make sure we're not confused because we are in the middle of 25-26 budget. This has nothing to do with that budget.
Correct. So this is fiscal year 24-25.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cotter. We would encourage a motion to open a public hearing for the resolution to adjust the year 24-25 budget as Mr. Cotter has presented.
Move to open public hearing.
Motion by Councilmember Troxel. Do we have a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Smith. All those in favor? Aye. All right. We are now in a public hearing for the consideration of a resolution to adjust the fiscal year 24-25 budget. We invite all those that are Brigham City residents can run for public office in Brigham City, hold property or own property in Brigham City to comment in this public hearing. We'd love for you to come to the podium. Please state your name and where you reside for the public record. And we'd love to hear from you for up to 3 minutes. And then please don't get confused. This is not public comment. This is public hearing specific to this resolution.
Mayor, seeing as no one appears to get up, I move we close the public hearing.
We have a motion to close public hearing by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Jeffries. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. We now take an action on this resolution to adjust fiscal year 24-25, and we encourage a motion.
I move we adjust the 24-25 budget as presented.
We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Hipp. Will be a roll call. We'll start to, I'm just going to go on the ends tonight. I hope it's okay with everybody. We'll start with Councilmember Hipp and move to his right. Jason, aye.
Batson, aye.
Ryan, aye.
Robbins, aye.
Jefferson, aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Our second public hearing for council meeting is a consideration of a resolution to transfer enterprise funds to fiscal year 25-26. Mr. Cotter.
All right, yeah, so this is, again, required by state law that we transfer money from our utility fund, which is where our electric, water, garbage, sewer, utilities reside. Because we're going to transfer money from there over to the general fund, we have to have a public hearing. So that's why we're doing this. As we talked about previously, and just again, for those that may watch this meeting later or want to know why we're doing what we're doing, is Brigham City owns its own utilities. We are a public service provider. And the whole goal, you can see down there, is we want to provide public service to the citizens, business and industries of the community. Service, not profit, is the utilities mission. One of the things we've talked about a lot, too, is, you know, if we were to be a private company, a lot of times those dividends and other things go back to the shareholders. In this case, we consider the residents of Brigham City to be those shareholders, and this transfer is that process of getting that revenue back into their hands to
In the form of services.
in the forms of services. That is correct. To really the services that we all enjoy: police, fire, parks, streets. The practice is very fiscally responsible. It's legal, and it's very common among cities that have these enterprise funds. So really kind of the question, not the question, but one of the things I wanted to show to the council really quickly on this is, okay, what does this look like for the normal person? And in this case, historically, my home has been around that normal average value for a Brigham City resident. So I'm fine sharing my utility information. I'm not showing anyone's information up there. This is the Cotter household. It's important also to recognize we do not transfer off of the customer service, off of any PPAC charges historically, or the blue can. We do not transfer off of those revenues. So up here we have my utilities that we do create a transfer off of. If I were to reduce each one of those services by 12%, so above it shows, hey, this is what I paid for the previous 12 months. If that transfer did not exist and we were able to reduce all of our rates 12% across the board, that's what I would have paid on the bottom. $276 savings. So if you think about it, that's what I pay as far as the transfer to general fund. In contrast with that, we are proposing to transfer around $4.3 million from the utility fund. If we were to get rid of that transfer and we had to go raise $4.3 million from a property tax increase to fund those services that reside in the general fund, I think Mayor Bott has expressed previously, I love how he talked about these services in his presentation that he gave to the council. Obviously, we have public safety. That our transfer funds a large amount of public safety. We're all grateful for those men and women who do that for the city. It also funds a lot of those services that Mayor Bott has presented to you that makes Brigham City a community. the parks, recreation, those things that we all love to enjoy and do. That goes away. We'd have to do a rate increase of 130%, which to my home would be $444. You can see there's a savings there. That it is better for the residents of Brigham City to participate in the utility transfer. There's a couple of reasons for that too, but if you think about it, one of the big drivers of that is all of our customers pay utility. Not all of them pay a property tax. Some are exempt, whether it's a school, a church, we're allowed. They don't pay property taxes, but they pay utility. But with that, that's why we're doing what we're doing. Any questions from the council about the utility transfer?
Clarify, that'd be $444 on top of what we're already paying.
Correct.
And the percent of the transfer this year that we allocated, Tom?
12%. Yep. That's what we have proposed in the budget. It would be in the tentative budget for you guys to approve later on. Previous years, besides the last couple, it had been up to 15%. In the last couple of years, the council made the decision to reduce that to 12%. So.
Further questions? If not, we'll like to have a motion to open a public hearing to consider a resolution to transfer enterprise funds to the fiscal year 2025-26 budget.
I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing as it relates to the transfer of enterprise funds for the 2025-26 budget.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hipp. Do we have a second? Second. Budget turned second by Councilmember Jensen. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Right. We will now open up a public hearing. This public hearing is for those that reside in Brigham City, own property in Brigham City, or can vote and run for public office in Brigham City. Please come to the podium, state your name, where you live, and we'd love for you to take up to 3 minutes. And remember, this is specific to the resolution on the transfer of the enterprise funds.
Okay. Breck Anderson, I live at 230 Skyline Drive, and, resident of Brigham City and property owner and all that stuff. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure when I wanted to know if those funds, when you transfer them into the new budget, do you guys just take that as more money that you can spend, or do you try to reduce stuff? That's what I don't think the city ought to just take that money and add more, increase people's pay, or do all that stuff with these funds. I think it should be used specifically to reduce costs so that the people benefit from it and just the city doesn't just get to expand itself. Because in my opinion, I think Brigham City has expanded quite a bit. It spends a lot of money. So I think that those funds should be, if there's a way of designating those funds to actually reduce something rather than to just add on to your pocketbook to spend.
Thank you.
Dean Lester, 120 North, 300 East. I would like to speak in support of the transfer. It was very interesting in the explanation that those that don't pay property tax in the city, but use city water or other services, electricity, participate in helping to subsidize our budget. And that's a benefit to me as a landholder in my property tax. So I think this is a wise use of the method that we have to fund our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
We close the public hearing on this.
There's a motion to close public hearing by Councilmember Jensen. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second by Councilmember Troxel. Thank you. Before we go to a vote, I think that's a good comment by Mr. Anderson. I would say that, yes, it is used to expand the city. We have a bigger police force. We have a full-time fire department. We have more in our power department. So yes, it does go to pay employees. I'm not sure what pocketbook is being referred to, but we can visit sometime later about what your thoughts were on that. But yeah, it does go to pay for the services that Oregon City uses as it expands, as population grows, it pays for salaries in the police department as we're in competition with the other cities around us, and frankly the fire department and regular employees. There's an inflationary element, of course, to public employees. That was a good question. Derek, Tom, was there anything I didn't catch in that you'd like to add to?
No, I would just say quickly before council takes a vote, as Tom gets ready to present the full fiscal budget, I know the council was sent a late potential adjustment. So if the council is considering a potential change to the transfer, I would say maybe just hold on the vote on the transfer until Tom presents the full fiscal year budget. So just
So what's that, in my mind, what that looks like is we're not actually going to vote on this resolution, or to say it would be tapped in with the next public hearing.
right. Obviously, the public hearing's done. I just wouldn't take action on the resolution yet, just in case the council wants to discuss the transfer rate as we discuss a quick change or potential change to what's coming. So you just have to take a vote on two resolutions
At the same time.
At the same time,
yeah. Sequence. Yep. Okay. That's a good suggestion. Council, just but not ahead. Are you feeling? I think that's a good suggestion. You want to move forward that way? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Euler, for that suggestion. We will move on to our last public hearing. I believe that's our last for City Council, which is the consideration of a resolution adopting a fiscal year 25-26 tentative budget. We'll invite Mr. Cotter to come up and present. While he's coming up, I would mention that we do intend or plan on going through truth of taxation, and so that's why a tentative budget is required that will hold us from June 30th until August, when we would be by law required to adopt a formal budget.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what the tentative budget means. Mr. Cotter.
Yeah, Mayor's exactly right. So as you can see on this, where we are is the calendar, as we talked about preparing a budget. So we're now in that June, where we're holding the public hearing on this tentative budget. We are going to go through the truth and taxation process. What the truth and taxation process just means is we are going to request more money in property taxes than we anticipate the certified tax rate to generate. So the State Tax Commission, they go through, they look at values with the assistance of the county auditor and assessor. And we're guaranteed in Utah, as you all are very aware, property taxes is a guaranteed revenue number. So we fully anticipate we're going to need more money out of property tax, so that's going to kick off the truth and taxation process. We are planning and scheduling to have our hearing for the truth and taxation for the proposed property tax increase on August 7th. The citizens will receive tax valuation notices from the county auditor. Those will go out at the end of July. And in there, it will show the parcel-specific information of how the proposed tax increase will impact them. It will have the exact dollar figures down. As we read in the News and Journal earlier this week, it appears that maybe the school district will also be going through the truth and taxation process, so they'll be listed in there as well, and the impact that will have. As far as noticing goes, we're required under state codes to notice these things. We'll notice the public hearing in the paper. We have notice on our website and different public websites that deal with noticing of public hearings. So we'll comply with all of that so that we have people informed so they can come and participate with us. So once we go through that process, and that's, as the Mayor explained, then we'll go through and make it a formally adopted budget later on after that is done. But what we have, so there have been some modifications since Mayor Ott presented his budget to the council. The projects continue to be in there. If you look at that page alone, there are $45 million worth of infrastructure projects in the tentative budget for the council for Brigham City. The utility rates, we're going to continue to do what has been proposed by Mr. Berg, our electric rate consultant. This will be the last year of his proposed rates. One of the projects we're proposing, one of the capital expenditures we're proposing in the next year's budget is for Mr. Berg to come back and to do another rate study for us. Obviously, as you're very aware, things have changed in that world and how that looks going forward. The great news of all this is because of the action taken by the city council, the mayor was able to propose in his budget that the P-PAC be set to 0. And the council has retained that recommendation. It's actually in city policy now that it has to be set to 0 because of our rate stabilization fund and the balance that is there. We fully anticipate the majority of residents, if their usage were to remain the same, they will actually see a lower electricity bill in the upcoming year than they had previously. We continue to work through our Class C funds that we're receiving from the state, and with the new addition of the transportation infrastructure sales tax, we'll continue to work on our roads, the sidewalks. And because it's infrastructure for transportation, we're allowed to use that money at the airport as well to do rehab projects out there. We talked at length with the council regarding the fleet fund and what is happening there. So this budget includes the 2% inflation adjusted number inside the fleet fund, as we talked at great length. The thing that has been new that we had to add in that we had not previously discussed with the council is earlier this week, we had a benefits committee meeting. At that meeting, we were shown the city's current utilization rates for our health insurance. Right now, we're functioning at 99% utilization. That does not include PEHP's administrative rate. They charge about 15% for administrative rate. Really, if you add that in, we're running at 114% of our utilization. And all that means is, so if 100% utilization is, for every dollar you put in, you're going to spend $1. The insurance is going to pay $1. So obviously, currently, PHP is not receiving a benefit from having Brigham City as a customer. I put up on the screen over the last 10, 11 years, the rate increases or decreases that we have seen as a city. So you can see it's pretty impressive over the last couple of years what the city has done. And that speaks volumes to our employees and the interest in their health and taking it serious. It's a great benefit that we offer our employees. We want them and their families to be healthy and to get the medical help when needed. With that said, so we fully don't know what the health insurance increase rate is going to be, but our broker, he told us to plan on 12 to 15% is what he believes is going to happen. He's going to go and work with PHP and talk about a lot of some of our higher costs. They may just be one-offs, for lack of a better term, not an ongoing medical concern. So that may play into this. Fully, we won't know for months into the budget what the renewal rate will be. Historically, when we do our budget, we build in a rate increase of 8%. What that means in the budget, though, because the budget kicks in halfway through, well, the health insurance kicks in January. We're already halfway through our fiscal year when that happens, but we put in half. So the budget has 4%, if that makes sense. We're anticipating, we put in 14%, so that means the budget went from 4 to 7. If that makes sense to what I'm trying to say. So long story short, that was an impact of $70,000, what we anticipate. And the change in the budget is I went in and put that in the property tax number. So it would be part of the TNT, because what we had talked about at our last meeting was, hey, we're gonna pay for half of the fleet bump, through a property tax increase, and the other part would be in a sales tax revenue adjustment, along with an ambulance revenue adjustment. So I am proposing in the tentative budget that $70,000 also be included in the property tax number. So that is what's in the tentative budget. Overall, you can see this is where the money is for Brigham City's tentative budget. And again, if you think about that first slide where we had $45 million in projects, personnel cost anywhere from $20 to $23 million, what we see as a city. So anyway, that was kind of the numbers to walk the council through tonight as we talked about the tentative budget and what has changed since what Mayor Bott presented to you back in May. So really the big change that is new to the council that we didn't have a work session about was the healthcare proposed increase inside the tentative budget. And ideally, we would have loved to have given this to you information before, but we received it a couple days ago. That's how these things work, and we brought it to you as fast as we found out about it. With that, any questions, comments from council that I can help or answer or confuse or more on?
Just to be clear again, even though the benefits committee just met Monday, we didn't put it off until this week. They called it once we received the estimates from the broker. I just wanted to make sure that we understood that we weren't trying to hide anything or that we knew that. Now we're springing it on them, but we received that number probably Friday or even Monday.
Monday.
On
Yeah.
Monday, and so we called the benefits committee meeting to discuss the number, and that's where this presentation comes from, and the timing of it.
Good clarification. Thank you.
Council questions? Workshop it.
So you're saying that the only way to come up with that is add more to the property tax?
That is not the only way. That is what I have proposed.
And I think, Ryan, one question I think obviously needs to be publicly stated is sound fiscal responsibility is ongoing expenditures are covered with ongoing revenues. So, really property tax, sales tax is going to be the recommendation from staff for something like this, because an expenditure like a health insurance benefit is not a one-time expense. They continually are ongoing, obviously. So, yeah, the staff recommendation is just a slight increase to the property tax. There are other ways. Obviously, we as staff feel like an ongoing expense needs to be covered by an ongoing revenue. Maybe just one other quick thing. If you're looking at this graph on the board, and I'm not 100% sure, but I can tell you of a municipal in the state of Utah, I would put that up against anybody in the state of Utah and maybe in the United States. From post-Obamacare, health insurance increases average about 8%. Brigham City has done a wonderful job, and I do, the timing the mayor talked about of us having this conversation. We've never had, I've been here for 15 years, and we've never had to have a conversation like this with the council, and obviously our renewals usually come in about this time. We've done a really good job, and we feel bad as staff that we're having this conversation, but as you can see on this board, we haven't had to have this type of conversation with the city council post 2017. So, council, we normally don't have this conversation because we've been trending, well below budget, even seeing some negatives over the years. So yeah, we apologize for the timing on this, but our employees and maybe it's some health and maybe it's just sheer luck, but we've had a really good run on health insurance for a lot of years. So
yeah, as I got this information, I wasn't with the city, so I asked our brokers about some of these larger numbers, and I said in 2016 what caused that large bump is city added an autism benefit and changed the HSA benefit. In 2018, 3% bump is when they added a hearing aid benefit. So if you look at those and see the stretch there, as Derek talked about, when I was at the county, I would have given my left foot for these numbers and what increases I was experiencing over there compared to this. Like, that's why I said kudos to our employees for taking their health serious. As Derek said, hopefully it's just a bad year. We go forward from here, but we fully anticipate a 12 to 15% increase come January.
Which would be the 70,000 total,
Yes.
the 15%. I was in on the, this meeting with the employee benefit committee. Yeah, nobody wants an increase, but it is. Tom, question though on, you said some of it was like one-off, you know, not a continuing charge, which kind of goes against what Derek was saying. If it's a continuing going on,
and that's just, we flat don't know though how PHP is going to respond. We can make the argument, and PHP can say that's great. You'll have them again. Like, there's no,
right? We don't know what's going to happen again. Sure.
it's just in the world of budgeting, as Derek explained, is we really try not to match an ongoing expenditure to one-time money. If we know the expenditure is going to be there year after year after year, we do not anticipate in 2027 to see a negative end number. We fully anticipate that 14%, 12 to 15% increase to go forward. And so as I prepared this and looking at things, I felt the property tax increase was the best revenue source to match with what health insurance is. It is an ongoing, it is a...
What percent did that put us on the property tax from our last meeting?
Really, it's because the numbers aren't finalized from the county yet. But I would imagine the last meeting we had talked about 5-ish% in that. I would imagine this would be another 2% on top. It'd be in the 7 to 8 range. But again, I'm very hesitant to say that fully. I mean, really the issue is we went from needing $240,000 in revenue, now we need 310. So that percentage, based on what happens with tax rates and the new growth, Board of Equalization adjustments and collection history, there's a lot that goes into the certified tax rate that can change that percentage. So I'm hesitant to say, but I would anticipate anywhere from 5 to 8% would be the total.
Well, I'm hesitant to say this, but we've been dealing with this for weeks, talking about the budget, and we started at 15% property tax increase, and we all knew that's a little high. And we're working so hard to get it down to, last week we decided to stick around 5% based on the fleet adjustment. Okay, it all makes sense. And then today we're going to have to add another 2% on top of that to help 70,000 more shortfall in healthcare. It's tough to swallow. It's like you can't. The simple world of the simple household, there's only so much money. So if you want something, you have to make a cut. If I want a brand new TV, I don't have $1,000 to buy my TV. Well, then I guess I cut out my vacation to pay for my TV. That's a choice I have to make.
And that is the choice the council gets to make.
Yeah.
It is your budget. So if the council would like to make a cut, that is the council's decision. You can modify this budget that I have presented tonight. If you want the $70,000 to come from an expense, that is completely in your purview. You are the one to hold the purse
That's
string.
correct. But we're not hearing recommendations of other options.
The council has
It seems like the simple answer to everything we talk about is like, we'll just add it to taxes, try to bring more revenue.
fair. I would say the
I don't
council.
want to be rude or to be disrespectful.
You're not. I would say the council has had the budget since May. If you wanted to look for cuts, you've had the budget for 6 weeks.
And I think I think
I can make suggestions.
yeah, we could
I am
come up
more
with
than
2 or 3
prepared.
suggestions. No, a lot of our capital project spending is one-time monies in the general fund specifically. So that, you know, and I think Councilmember Smith called me earlier this week and was like, hey, you know, if we were wanting to cut something, you know, what, when we look at a capital project potentially to cut. And I think obviously staff's fine with that recommendation, but just realize that a cut to a capital project that's already being funded with one-time money. So, you know, if we cut $70,000 out of a general fund capital project, that's funded with one-time money. So we're looking for that $70,000 in next year's budget because we'd be funding that one-time capital project money with an ongoing expense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about the theory of kicking the can down the road, but I get what you're saying.
Yep.
Right? You're basically, that's what you're going to be doing. But
I don't mean to be, and I'm not, Councilmember Jeffries and I are friends, but I don't know that I agree with his analogy, because if you go without a vacation in your home, there's always another vacation. Now, if the analogy was, I'm not going to put a roof on because it's leaking because I can't afford it, now you're kicking that roof down the road for another year. That would be a more accurate analogy in my
well,
opinion.
call it what you want. It's just the idea is that you only have, my whole point was you only have so much money in your bank to pay for things. How do I create more money? I can't go to my boss and ask for a raise. It's easy for the city to say, oh, we'll just get it from the citizens and raise taxes. That's my point. Is there another way to make these decisions and make everything happen? I mean, everybody has a priority. You talk to Fleet, they got a priority. You talk to Tyler, he's got priorities. You electrical, they're going to have, everybody's got the priority list. And I think everybody have to respect that.
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize too, as I showed the calendar up there about the budget, like we have people bring in that list back in February, and we vet it, and the mayor's office goes through it, and at that time, people are told no, that's not going to fit, that's not going to work. We work through and fill, and again, the budget's not perfect, but it's a process that involves the directors, that involves city staff, that it's not something that we just throw together without an understanding what the impact is going to be to the citizen.
I don't think neither one of them imply that at all.
So, I mean, none of us, like I've mentioned previously, yeah, in a perfect world, there wouldn't be a tax increase. Mayor Bott has expressed his opinion as someone who went through the tax increase back at the fire station. The public meeting was held when residents expressed frustration to the council for why are you proposing 100%, whatever it was, number.
11.
It's because of the trying to use one-time funds to cover ongoing expenditures. Eventually that bill comes due. And I'm not saying we can't do it for this year. I would, again, it's the council's budget. This isn't staff's budget. It's not. So if the council's direction, again, it's a tentative, would be to, hey, give us some things to cut. We can bring that back. We can propose those things to the council.
I think the ongoing revenues, so yeah, a couple ideas, and it might sound like a broken record because we've had this same conversation in multiple budget work sessions, but ongoing revenues, we could make an adjustment to the transfer. We can make an adjustment to sales tax. We could make an adjustment to ambulance revenue.
The
So those
adjustment of the transfer doesn't bring in any more income or change expenses, though. So
Say that again.
if we adjust the transfer, that doesn't bring in any more revenue and it doesn't change any expenses. It's moving money around.
Yep. But
So I throw that one out.
yeah, you could bump the transfer to 12.4, whatever it is, B to cover it, and then you're going to cut a capital project out of
Right.
utility fund.
Right.
So that's an option there. And then obviously on the expense side, you know, there are ongoing expenditures in the budget, you know, personnel, health benefits, a lot of things associated with just ongoing expenditures that the city pays every year, and we could go through some of those as well.
Tom, if we're looking at 70,000, we say 2%. I think with the 5% we were talking was about $55 per household. So isn't that about $11 a percent, something like that? I was thinking. Am I right there?
I can't remember.
I'm just wondering how much would this be per
And again,
house kind of thing, per family?
yeah. Again, it's hard to know. And again, so this is the other frustrating part is the property tax thing, as I talked about in that certified tax rate. There's a lot that goes into that. So as we look at it, it's based off the information we have now. More information is going to come in, and we'll have a better idea of really what does new growth look like.
Yeah, but then, I know, I get it.
But I think I can't remember around, but I think when we talked about it,
I thought our numbers last,
because all I remember is, this is a quote I remember, it was about 2 monsters a month. So I'm not advocating any beverage over another.
they gotta work in your denominations.
So it's probably was that. That's like $6 a month times 12. That seems high, but so maybe it wasn't even 6 monsters. I mean, $6, but
I seem to think we were around 50.
it seems like it was that number, 40 to 60.
So if we 2 more percent, we're thinking another 25 to $30 a household. I'm thinking there.
And so that's the part where, so like right now, again, I said, so we just increased the property tax revenue by $70,000. When the information comes back from the county and from the state tax commission, depending on what new growth and how the Board of Equalization adjustment looks, how Brigham City's collection rate over the last 5 years looks, how personal property has grown, there's a lot of things that we just don't know yet. Like, really, it could be, I mean, if it's a really good year, there potentially could be no tax increase. The certified tax rate covers all of it. Do I expect that? No. But it could be anywhere from 3 to 8% would be my guess. And that is a guess. Like,
We talked about last time, so we kind of, I thought landed on, about a 5% with some coming with making an adjustment, right, to sales tax, and an adjustment to the,
Yep.
Right?
correct.
Okay. So confidence level between those two things. If you keep it at 5% and you say, okay, we need another 70, let's put it between the two of these and less another year to at least look at what we can do. What is your confidence level? Because sales tax, I worry only as a business owner type person, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. So where I'm coming from that is, what's your confidence level in saying, hey, if you would take another?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. As we looked at those, as we looked at sales tax, and it's, I think you and I probably share a very similar feeling about sales tax. Of, I don't have confidence in knowing what was going to be happening. As we talked about last time, we actually held sales tax even because of our trepidation for what was happening in the economy at large. So that one, I mean, the number's not big. Again, we're talking 30 if we were going to split it. But in the ambulance revenue side of things, it's because of the change with House Bill 301. Again, there's just enough unknown there for me to have a slight hesitation in taking a revenue there. And as bad as it sounds, doesn't sound bad, but property tax is a known. Like, I put that number in, that is what we are going to get. Sure. So that is why I am proposing in the tentative budget that to be there. As Councilmember Jeffrey said, there is the other side of the equation. That's an algebraic fact. Take something from the left hand.
So what if then also you say, hey, golf course, you get one.
So in that world, the golf course won't impact this discussion. The golf course is outside of property tax. They do their own thing,
but the revenue, would the revenue not be there?
Not in the golf course.
The golf course is completely in its own world, its own fund. But if it's a park, if it's a recreation,
stuff through there is fleet fund.
Yeah, but it doesn't come from the general fund.
Okay.
Does that make,
That,
I mean,
that
that-
makes sense, yes, that, yeah.
very good question.
Um,
Yeah, so if we do
If,
it,
if
oh,
we
sorry, go
talk
ahead.
about the idea that, we just talked about the transfer fund. That transfer is to spread the costs out to run Brigham City, across even the other, and not put it all onto the property owner. But we're being asked to fund something that we don't know what it's gonna be right now at a property tax. We are suggesting that in January, it's gonna go up, but we don't know the amount. But we want a specific amount now from the property owners. And so my head is saying that that if we're gonna spread the cost out amongst all of Brigham City, and that it does make more sense to actually change transfer amount for something like the health insurance, and possibly even not do it now, but know that it's coming and that we'll probably have to start making that adjustment as we get more numbers and make an adjustment to that. But I'm not comfortable with getting a specific dollar amount now and start collecting it now from the property owners for something that we believe will happen in the future, starting in
I
January.
understand, your point is valid,
And
that is what a budget is. I don't know for certainty if we will have all our police officers work the entire year. That is what we're budgeting. It is our best guess. With the information we have, this is what we feel is going to happen, and that's, I mean, you're spot on. There's no, that's what the budget is. It's saying, hey, this is what I anticipate is going to happen on both the expense side and the revenue side. We try to be as
And I think you guys have
conservative
thought of everything,
as
and
possible, but
that's
yeah.
the valid point. I'm just saying that the way my brain would do the budgeting, or my suggestion as a city council member, is to actually spread the cost of our health insurance to our employees if it goes up. And part of that transfer, if the time comes,
Yeah,
when the time comes.
Derek will know more of this world than I do, coming from the county and the transfer rules and everything else. I believe if we were going to do, my suggestion would be, if that's what the council wants to do, potentially do it now. Because I think if we are going to increase the transfer, we have to hold another public hearing, which is fine. With a budget adjustment, we'd have to do a public hearing anyway. And I completely don't know the ins and outs of the transfer rules if it were to change. I know as we're proposing a transfer, we have to notify and tell people in the utility bill.
Yeah, it's actually a double notification, so we're required, so every resident in the city receive notification in their utility bill about tonight's public hearing on the transfer. They'll receive another notification in their July utility bill of the actual transfer that the council adopts tonight. And if we were to do that again, we would start that process over. But it obviously, staff recommendation would not be to do an adjustment, especially, and please don't take my comments the wrong way, but doing a adjustment to a utility fund transfer for $70,000 does not make a lot of sense. We're talking about a $23 million budget just for personnel, and $70,000 is a pretty small number to hold public hearings about a utility fund transfer and provide notices on a change to that. So the recommendation would be if the utility fund transfer is what we want to use to cover the extra $70,000, the council will elect to do so tonight, and we can give you 2 or 3 items from the utility fund capital projects that we could cut to make up for that immediately.
Right there, if we do it with the transfer, the only thing is we're cutting a capital project in the utility fund instead of the general fund. That's all that means, really.
Yeah, and a lot of the capital projects in the utility funds are ongoing revenues, not one-time monies. capital projects in the general fund are one-time monies from prior year savings.
Right, but I'm
So-
saying, if we change the transfer and we move more over, that's all that's doing is telling us where we're gonna cut the 70,000 from,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
I could maybe offer a suggestion / comment. The only product the city sells that profits are made of is services. If we're gonna increase, to Councilmember Jeffrey's comment, at least what I understood his comment, because in the business world, if prices go up, if your expenses go up, then you obviously increase prices, or increase how much you're selling or producing. With that in mind, the only ongoing thing with the
To clarify, that's not exactly what I said.
well,
You have to make cuts sometimes to justify the other expense that came along with it.
right,
It's more about making the cuts, not about raising prices or taxes.
yeah. So I guess
Mainly what.
no, and that's good clarification. So I guess with what you're saying, in order to combine what Councilmember Jensen is saying, we're not really making a cut. Right now, we're talking about increasing a transfer, which is just taking money from something that's already possibly been kicked down the road for a little while, put into here for something that's ongoing. I guess my thought / suggestion is if you're not going to take it out of utility fund transfer by increasing it, then you're going to have, the only other ongoing to cover that would be employees. That's the only ongoing cost. So looking at employees, what are you going to cut there? That's the only thing that's ongoing. Everything else is one time kicking the can down the road. What I would suggest is the only other ongoing cost that a product that we sell, service, where a price could be increased for that service to cover this, would be in the utility rates. If you're going to transfer and to figure out what rate would be increased, whether that's water, trash, power, to cover that 70, because that's an ongoing income on a product that the city sells to cover an ongoing
Okay,
cost
well-
or expense.
Interrupt, but you're right. However, if you're watching the federal government the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months now, cuts have been made, federal level. People, I mean, there's one gentleman here on our council who was, unfortunately, it hit him. He lost his job. Cuts are made by employees. You saw the news with Procter & Gamble today. They're going to cut 7,000 jobs today. How much is going to affect Buck Feather County? We don't actually know that number yet, but they realize you can't raise costs to consumers at such a high. You have to look internally how to make that adjustment. And unfortunately, in the business world, sometimes those cuts are made with employees and people do lose their job. That's the sad part of the business world, but it's a real reality. And I am not asking for anyone to lose their job here at the city. I'm asking for other alternatives. Now, if you're going to come to me and say, well, one idea is to cut this one position, well, then so be it. Let's have a discussion about it.
You think? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt for interrupting me. That's a play on words, but I guess that's what I am suggesting. That's the only ongoing. Imagine ongoing is employment, and so that's what I'm suggesting is that council look at employment. It's the only thing that makes sense. Otherwise, we're taking $70,000 and out of general fund to cover an ongoing one time. So next year's budget, you're going to be trying to accommodate 70 that you're taking this year, plus whatever the increase is over the 25-26 budget, looking at 26-27.
Fair enough. Therefore, I'll take the mayor's recommendation. We'll look at employees. If that's the answer, if that's the,
I don't know if that's the answer. That's the only thing that matches. We have an ongoing cost to ongoing cost.
and we should look at that.
So I guess my suggestion would be is to encourage the council to meet with the directors and discuss with them where they feel they can cut an employee or cut $70,000 worth of an employee.
But as we're looking at this, we're guessing at 70. Like our 70,000, where's it come? Like, kind of to Robin's point, we don't know for sure that's what that number is. So Tom, what Tom presented was 14% increase, okay, which is actually, because it's only half the budget, 7 in the actual budget. Okay. So it's 14%, and our broker's saying between a 12 and 15% health insurance increase. Okay. And that, I mean, I hear the word guess, and, you know, I hope the newspaper doesn't put this in writing, but that's what a budget is.
Right.
Frankly. You don't know what it is until it happens. Right. And that's, you know,
Very fluid.
yeah, and no disrespect, we're talking about $70,000 on a, you know, a $106 million budget. So,
And I'm glad you just said that, Derek, because that's exactly the issue that I'm having. It is only $70,000. So why do we have to raise taxes to come up with 70 grand? That's really what I'm stuck on, because I just can't get past it. And that's really, I don't know how else to say it, because it is such a small number. How else can we find that answer without raising, even if it's 2%? How can we fix this without doing that? And like really,
Yeah, I guess I would, and I don't know everything, but I don't think that it is $70,000. 70 this year, it's 70 next year based on this year's budget, so it just keeps compounding. I don't think it's going to go down 70 next year. I don't know that that's technically a true statement that we're only looking for 70. We're looking for 70 ongoing, year after year after year, from this year forward, plus whatever increases are coming on the next year based on health concerns.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. No, this is the part where I'm glad I'm no longer an elected official.
And that's a good statement. I don't want to construe by any of our comments. We all have a pit on our stomach right now.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't have to make the decision.
Yeah,
That's what
no,
I'm
but
saying.
I just want the citizens to know this isn't anything flippant. The mayor's opinion is presented in the budget, and in my opinion, we're understaffed in quite a few. We're running on some understaffed departments. So even though I've lined out a stream of logic, in my opinion, that doesn't mean that I feel like there's anybody that can be kept, because I don't. But ongoing expense needs to be covered by ongoing expense, whether it's a cut or an increase.
yeah, I think I talked about this in a previous budget work meeting, just so council's aware and public's aware. There were 11 new full-time employee requests that came to the mayor through the budget process, and essentially 1.5 is all that has been moved forward in this budget.
And so coming up with ideas with all of this, we say, okay, tentatively, yes, this is what we're doing tonight. Final budget is not set till August. We've got to have a truth and taxation meeting, which means we could still hammer out a couple of things, have another work session. We needed to discuss this stuff. Yes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So really what you set tonight is you're setting what the notice is to the residents in the truth and taxation. And it's not the percentage. We can't tell you because the county hasn't
Because we don't
approved
that's
it.
where I'm going.
And that's the difficult
We
part.
don't know for sure that's what that's.
And I absolutely love the prior county auditors and my old chair trying to figure this out, because he could never figure out why I was upset I didn't have the number when I was trying to approve a budget. So, but anyway, what you're setting tonight is the number in the notice. You have from now until we actually August 7th to make a change. So this is literally, it could be as simple.
only down.
Yep.
Set the number.
Yeah, so you set the number at, that extra 70,000, and I hate talking about percentages. We really need to talk about the actual dollar amount. We're asking for a $310,000 increase in property taxes. That's the exact number that we're asking for. That will get flushed out as the county sets certified tax rate. We'll put that number in the notices. The new growth number, that is the big unknown, might come in $120,000 more than we think it's going to, and the whole conversation tonight is a nothing burger, in the words of the city attorney. So.
Okay, so I mean, that's kind of where I was getting at. We can come up with, we will have more numbers in the future.
We'll have
We don't
that.
have more, we can't,
We'll have solid numbers.
We'll have it next week.
have all holidays for the next months. We won't even meet here until the end of July, but so
And Councilmember Smith's point, that is actually one of the issues we bumped into this year. Because the second meeting would be on June 19th. We would have more information, but we are not having council meeting that night. So,
And the third, July 3rd, and so, okay. So what are,
Council meeting.
right, 17th, yes, yeah.
Because of the holiday.
Because of, and the 4th of July. So so as far as other council members go, how do you guys feel about going with a, I mean, I suggest, we'll talk about that in the work session too, is saying, okay, look, this is what we're gonna do, and then when we have solid numbers, we can have solid, yes, become a pressing budget here.
I'm not a fan of approving a tentative budget that we've been working on that has been changed in the last 48 hours, and then without having a discussion on how we're going to do that, just approving the budget. I understand the situation that this has put us in, but I'm not comfortable with just adopting the tentative budget that's been changed in the last 40. I would consider approving the tentative budget minus this and then having a discussion on it. And I do know that we have to have it in there in order to get our notices out for the freaking taxation. My suggestion is right now not even putting this in our tax increase.
By the time we hit July, there won't be enough time to publicly notice the TRT.
No, it has to be done.
I think that if you guys keep saying it's just $70,000, it's just $70,000, and it's just $25 per person per household. There's a line item possibly somewhere within the budget that can be reduced a little bit somewhere, the possibility of that, and that's something may have to be cut. I'm not suggesting it be in employment, but I don't know, certain general costs that we kind of it can be.
I get what you're saying. I
there
feel like
can
I'm
be a
hearing that perhaps there's fluff in the budget.
not fluff,
And I would tell you that there
but
is
it would
no
be a
fluff in the budget.
painful cut. But my thing is that we're talking about, okay, we won't go without vacations, or we won't go without sodas or something. There's a large percentage of people that don't even get to buy sodas or buy monster trucks or go to Fizz or go on vacation. And so an extra $15, $20 is a big deal to some households. And I'm not calling it fluff, but we're making our cuts within our households because of inflation and rising costs to just actually have a place to live and have electricity and water and things that we're supposed to do. And then the increase in, educating our kids and everything, that it's not a fluff, it's just, I do think that being able to look at, I can give a suggestion.
That would be helpful because it's
I
been
mean,
turned over to the council, so it's your budget. So that's your
yeah, and in looking at that, a suggestion in, renegotiating, I don't know. There's just some things that, I don't know. Uniforms, I don't know. Uniforms or travel or not shirts, travel, you know, something that we can knock off.
Well, I'm not saying that
Okay.
doesn't make sense. Obviously, we do that in our household and our business.
Yeah,
What I'm suggesting is I've given you what I believe is a bare bone budget. It's turned over to the council. If you need to look into where you're gonna cut, that's gonna be up to you
Mhm.
to meet with the directors and to figure out where you think something small can be cut ongoing. That would be my suggestion, ongoing, not one time, because all you're doing is kicking that one-time money down the road. So uniforms, that's kicking it down the road. They're gonna need them next year.
I'm not saying get rid of uniforms. I'm
No,
just
you're
saying,
cutting the uniforms, so obviously something.
No, I'm not
get rid of.
cutting uniforms. Nobody gets
No, no,
uniforms.
no, that was just a
It's just the
suggestion. That's
amount.
what I'm asking.
The amount. Do we all need, you know,
That would be a
access
question
to
to
this
for the
many
directors.
shirts and stuff?
With all due respect, I'm not gonna be meeting with directors for them to make cuts. I think that needs to come from you guys' leadership. You guys are the ones that run the city. I am not. I'm not gonna do their job. So with all due respect, I trust the police chief. I trust Tyler and his team. I trust Derek and his team to make those decisions for us. That's why I'm elected to sit on this council. I take the information that's given to me and try to make the best decision that I can on the feedback I get from the community and the citizens and our neighbors, right? I have a full-time job. I don't need another one. So
So then maybe a suggestion of where to look.
you won't like what I come up with, though. That's the problem. That's my point.
Yeah, but you gotta own it, Dave. So if you've got a suggestion, you need to make it based on your neighbors and trying to come up with 70,000.
And I think what, I've listened to Councilmember Troxel and what I've heard her say, I'm gonna publicly say it, and the finance and operation brain that I have here is, I think what you're asking us to do is not to budget for the health insurance increase and come back mid-year for a budget revision with a plan to cover it. That's what I've heard, is we are going to purposely leave the health insurance budget increase out of the tentative budget, and we will come back at a later date with a plan to take care of that. That's what I've heard. And that's council's direction, we can do that.
Suggestion right off the, and that's what we're.
I mean,
we're
that's
gonna
what we
end up
would
doing.
have to do if they didn't come with you with this information until next week, after we already approved everything. And so I think the timing is really bad. It would have been better to have that kind of idea prior while we were talking about the budget. And I think that that's something that I would suggest that you need to talk to your health insurance company to, is that our mayor is working on our budget right now. We need some tentative type of thing so that he can have an outlook on that.
Yeah, and the only way we can change that is change the renewal periods. So if the council wants to look at a renewal period from July to June instead of January to December for health insurance, that's what it would take to have 100% information as we go through the budget process.
Is that a possibility?
No, it's not popular. The employees are not going to like it,
No.
but that's what you're requesting is a 6 months change to the renewal periods.
So what if you just keep it the way that is? We can make an adjustment to $35,000 to our sales tax and a $35,000 fund. I know we're kicking that down to next year and looking at what that does next year as far as possibly a tax increase, but
What if alternative, 35,000 more in sales tax and 35,000 in new growth? Same kind of, not out of property, or it's not out of fund balance. And then it's,
if you put the number to property tax, it has to go in the truth and taxation.
I know.
We don't
Well,
budget,
no, the new growth, it comes out of that
but
new growth.
we don't budget new. So remember, property tax is a total dollar amount. The council's budget they set tonight is that dollar amount. New growth is you got to set the dollar amount of the tax. If you're telling us to add $35,000 of property tax revenue on a dollar amount, I can't split that out between new growth, because that's an unknown.
I just remember this happened last year. I can't remember what the issue was, but I remember sitting here right at the same time last year. We're about to do the budget and get to that final step, and then we were landed another. Oh, by the way, this came up out of nowhere, and I can't remember what it was. I apologize. I do remember the same idea kind of happened.
If you
But-
remember also, we didn't raise taxes. We didn't do CRT last year.
You could do,
What does that
you
have
can do,
to?
you can do a $35,000 sales tax and a $35,000 property tax rate. And I mean, I guess that's where I'm kind of headed with this, where it's our budget. What do we want to do? How do we want to fix the problem? What are you opposed to versus what are you okay with?
That's the staff account.
For the council, sorry guys.
So I'm questioning if this hadn't come up, and we're looking at the tentative budget with 70,000, would we have just moved forward with the tentative? The one issue. That's all I'm hearing right now is the one issue. But I think deeper down there may be a bigger issue. It's kind of like going to dinner. Everybody loves to go to dinner. I love to go to dinner. Trying to pay the bill. That by being charged. Reality is, we know there's going to be property tax. Well, that's going to.
You're right.
It's the issues that we're really focused on.
So if you-
that's 70,000. That's
Correct.
the only thing we're discussing.
100%, you're correct, because that's really it, Dave, if you look at it that way. But we also remember the last meeting we had, we talked about the tax increase being around, 5.1? We agreed to a number knowing that it could go under but can't go up. And I was on record saying it'll probably be coming under 5%, at least from my perspective. So my position is, when we get to that point to actually put that number in, okay, is to hopefully get under 5%. But coming in today's meeting, we need to get it to 7 or 8%. Like, well, we're going backwards. So, but to your point, you are right. We're ready to move. I think the council is ready to move that motion to approve the 5.1. I think that was the number. Correct me if- Yeah, it was a dollar amount, but I believe it was 5.1, roughly 5.3, maybe. I don't know, something like that. We agreed that would we come with, and then when we get to that point, then we come up with a real number, knowing that we're not going over that. So yeah, so in a nutshell, that's the answer. I'm just speaking on behalf of me.
So under the tentative budget, the word tentative means not absolute. So if we were to approve a tentative budget, then determine at a later date how we wanted to move forward on that 70,000 in consideration right now, would we be fine? Could we say, okay, we're going to add that to the budget. This is how we're going to fund it. It's going to come out of property tax, along with sales tax, a certain percent, or another creative way that we could come up with funding something that needs to be funded. But we would still be okay with tentative budget. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah,
It's not a showstopper at this.
yeah, the only thing I have to kind of lock in is the property tax number.
Okay, so that's so when you say that, are you talking a number or a percentage? We need a number.
Number.
Our number was 310. 240 plus the 70, 310.
We agreed to getting to that number. We don't have to get the property tax probably no more than 5%. The other ways to get to that money was sales tax revenue, correct? Another ambulance fund or something.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Tentative budget, though, has the 160 from property tax as the number. Is it 160?
240.
240. Okay.
Yeah.
240 from property. Because it was 330 total. Tom has asked you for an additional 70.
And it's-
What you
want an
agreed
additional
upon,
70 for property.
what you agreed upon in last Thursday night's meeting was 240. From last Thursday night to tonight, well, the email you got from staff earlier this week is from 240 to 310.
Based on the 70.
Yep.
We can't go back. If we approve it without that 70,
Mm-hmm.
we can't go back and add the 72.
The property taxes.
We have to establish what that number is.
You can always go lower in property tax.
We can always go lower, but we can't go. So they're asking for an additional 70 on the property.
$75 properties.
Dividing it up.
I mean, obviously, that we're probably gonna talk about.
Because it's ongoing.
Yeah, but it might, I mean,
In the meantime, it gets
Yeah.
through with a,
yeah.
can
who
lock
knows?
into
There's
a property
a lot of
tax.
things can happen in a year.
I'm good with that.
Point of a motion.
You're saying to
Public hearing.
increase.
You gotta have public
the-
hearing.
Yeah,
the-
motion, public hearing, 75.
Okay, yeah.
You're going to add 35,000 instead of the 70.
Is that where we are? Here.
Like that, sounds like you're ready for a motion, yeah, that would be the motion would be to go into public hearing to adopt, your suggestion is to the, budget. And the tentative budget, to adopt the tentative budget with your suggestions.
Motion's just to open the public
Yeah,
hearing.
public hearing for the tentative budget that
Yep.
has your suggestion.
This suggestion has to be in that, for the public hearing?
No, you've
No.
got to open the public hearing.
Get
on the
that open
budget.
here.
And you'll make a motion to approve a resolution after that.
So you can still chat or whatever after.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
It's a good time. I move we open a public hearing on this budget.
Have a motion to open public hearing and a second by Councilmember, that was Councilmember Jensen, and a second by Councilmember Hip to open the public hearing for consideration of a resolution adopting fiscal year 2025 tentative budget. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We invite all that are here that would like to comment. Please come and state your name, again, even though you may have done it before because it's public record, where you live, and take up to 3 minutes with your public comment in this public hearing.
Sorry to keep on bugging you. I'll try and be a little calmer and stuff on this. I tend to get excited. I've ADHD, so I tend to overreact on a lot of stuff. But when you scare the living daylights out of me when you say you're increasing taxes by 5%, I know it doesn't cover all of the schools and all that, but I pay with the lease property that I have to pay triple net where I have to pay the property tax, and the lots that I have in the property taxes, I pay $20,000 a year in property tax. And I don't make near as much as most of you guys do. So whenever you say that you're going to increase it by 5%, I know the city budget is not including all the school taxes and that, but the school taxes and stuff. But when property tax goes up 5% for me, it's $1,000.
Well, that's of your total tax bill, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I know, but you understand that this is not, when you're saying
Only
the
the
5%
breaking city portion, is
increase,
that what
it's
you're-
not increasing the whole amount. But the schools, I had the same argument from the schools saying, oh, it's only gonna cost you $45 to increase to build these new buildings. And then they came back and says, well, that was $45 a month. But to me, that was like $1,500 a month more. So, and that, you know, so I'm just, I'm not in favor of much on increase on the property tax, because like when I put in my subdivision, I increased all of the revenue everybody got. I have to pay until I sell lots, I have to pay all of that increase. And all that, so I've increased a lot of the revenue for the city, but I just have to pay it until I sell the lots. And as far as the insurance goes, I have one other comment to make. Is my wife works for Delta Airlines. When they get a adjustment on the health insurance, the employees pay the difference, or they will split it with it. And I don't know if that's the case here, but if the employees' insurance is going up, it doesn't mean that the city should have to cover all of that. They should bear some of that things, because that's what happens in the private sector.
Thank you.
My name is Corey Anderson. I live at 430 East, 1000 South, Brigham City. I'm pretty active on social media. I see people, obviously everyone's never in favor of tax increase, utility increase. Time and time again, more and more over the years, I see people constantly getting upset with how much Brigham City raises utilities and taxes. People that move away or people that comment that live in other towns compare their rates to what Brigham City has. It can be substantially different, and every area is different and everything. But to say that it should always be, you know, tax increases, to Jeffrey's point, that there's got to be other options out there. I don't follow a lot of politics or anything, but just in my experience of watching somewhere where you could make budget cuts, look at your maintenance department. How many people do you need to mow one street at a time? I see 10 people sometimes mowing one street. To get Main Street done, you could do that with a couple people in a day. Put out my garbage cans one day. I forgot. We've all forgotten to put our garbage cans out. You scramble out in the morning realizing it's garbage day. I had that happen at 7:30 a.m. I thought, I'll chance it. You know, if it happens, it happens. If not, then you wait till next week. Well, within 30 minutes, I had a city official come up, put a notification on my trash can saying you need to put your trash cans out early. Well, yeah, well, we know you either pick it up or you don't. But why did I need to have someone come and put a notification on my trash can to notify me you need to put your trash cans out earlier? I just forgot. I know that I normally have them out the night before. I see city officials sleeping in trucks, and I've heard that from other people while on the clock. There's places, that's just one example. There could absolutely be cuts instead of just tax.
Thank you.
Daniel Kennedy. In my profession, when it comes to financial decisions, it comes down to two things: logic and emotion. And usually with my clients, the discussion is what can we do now to eliminate emotion later so as to be able to make life easier for everybody. I realize it's not a popular suggestion, but I think you're going to end up saving a lot more heartache, a lot less stress long term to try to fix the problem now, albeit a frustrating problem, and continuing to push it down the road continually and continually and continually, because next year you're going to have different problems. To try to add last year's problems onto next year is just going to make life not only miserable for the city council, but for the citizens. So if we have a means to be able to eliminate the emotional stress, I think that's going to be worth way more than we would save by putting it off later.
Thank you.
Wendy Kano, I live at 336 South 300 West. My concern is trivial compared to the concerns you have here. But I've also listened to what people have said, and I think it applies. For years and years, I wait for the swimming pool to open. And I went down at 7 o'clock to go do lap swims this year and was told that they're no longer doing that, which was so disappointing, not just to me, but to several other people who make that a regular thing to look forward to in the summer. And I was thinking, okay, so why would they cut it? And they says, oh, well, because there's just a handful of people. Well, those handful of people still pay money, and they're not bothering anybody. They're just swimming. And I know you have to pay for 2 lifeguards in order to change off for 1.5 hours. But I've also noticed, like they've said, way too many employees that are just wandering around the decks doing nothing. And I just wonder if during, the times that they are not lifeguarding, if those lifeguards cannot also be doing, cleanup in between, because, a change is as good as a rest. And like I said, there's a lot of employees that seem to just be doing nothing. And I just think for the 3 months, the 1 hour, or you could even cut it down. It's 1.5 hours, but even if you cut it down to just 1 hour, I think people would really appreciate it. They said that they have tried advertising to get more people, and I've never seen advertising anywhere. I think you could advertise at the senior center. You could advertise on the whatever board there, the Chamber of Commerce board. I think the school district, they have more than enough people at their swim pool in the morning. And a lot of them are retired people that could swim at 7 instead of 5:30 at the natatorium. I don't think the school district are swimmer hogs. So I think they would share with us. But anyway, so I was just told this is where I need to make my request. Put back in the swim in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I move we close the public comments unless anyone else wants to.
I have a motion to close public comment. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Troxel. That was Councilmember Jensen with the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now we have, would be the time for actually 2 actions. If you remember, you got the resolution for the enterprise funds transfer and the tentative budget. Not to be combined, but separate.
You want the tentative budget?
I don't think the order matters. I go easiest to hardest.
Depends on if you're gonna adjust the utility fund transfer, which one you do first.
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be by motion.
Yes.
So if anybody. I'm going to put forth a motion to change the amount of the transfer.
Good point.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the transfer enterprise funds in fiscal year 25, 26, the way it's been.
I have a motion by Councilmember Smith. Do we have a second?
Councilmember Smith, will you say the percentage in there just publicly? 12%
transfer.
We have a second by Councilmember Jensen.
Or the 12%, yeah.
Okay. All right. This will be a roll call, and we'll go from Councilmember Jeffries to his left.
Rivers and I.
Robbins and I.
Ryan's aye.
Simpsons and I.
Dave's and I.
Motion passes. Thank you.
So I'm still saying tentatively, guys. As far as our budget goes, because again, once we get all the numbers in, this stuff can still come down. I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the tentative budget for the fiscal year 25-26 with our property tax at 275,000, 35,000 sales tax or pounds.
That's an approval of the budget with those numbers.
With those changes, yes.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Smith. Do we have a second?
Second. The or is really difficult for finance. It's
And or then. Okay, let's do sales tax.
We have a motion. Do we still have a second?
We still have a second.
By Councilmember Hitt.
Excuse me, can we clarify that motion, please?
I didn't hear all
Heard
of
what I said, Jeffrey.
I need to make a motion that we approve the tentative budget, 25-26 tentative budget with an amount of 275,000 property tax additional and 35,000 out of sales tax. An additional 35,000 from sales.
Do we know what the percentage is?
what percentage of property tax. Sorry if I sound like a broken record, but it's really difficult to talk about percentages publicly, especially because those percentages are yet to be set by the county auditor. We can estimate to be about 6. Yep. That is complete estimate until we have that new growth number. That's why I gave a number. Close to 1%.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Be a roll call vote. Unless there's more discussion needs to happen, this will be a roll call vote. Or Councilmember Hipp and move to his right.
Dave's an aye.
Benson's an aye.
Ryan's aye.
Robbins, aye.
There's his nay.
Okay, motion passes. We will move on to public comments. This is for anybody in the public that is a resident of Brigham City, and this can be about anything that you'd like. We'd invite you to come up to the podium. Again, because it's public record, we invite you, even if it's for the third time, state your name and address, and please, we would enjoy hearing you for up to 3 minutes. Public comment is now open.
But we missed this part.
No.
Well, that's good. Well, I'd like to say special thanks to Councilman Jeffries for trying to help me out.
Please don't.
Huh?
I know what you're saying. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Breck, you're on the timer.
Okay. Well, we, of course, there was a recent Channel 4 news thing covered, which my son was featured in, and in regard to Peach Days and Coca-Cola and the chamber, since we were banned from being able to sell our lemonade anymore in Peach Days at the car show, and so we put up quite a big fuss. The resolution today was that Coca-Cola has resigned from providing the services. The Chamber of Commerce is no longer going to run all the volunteers and run the Coke trucks. Food vendors are going to be allowed to sell drinks and at their choosing, which will be really good for next year, because you'll get better food vendors when they know they can sell things. But we just want to make sure that they're able to sell our lemonade this year, since we were told that we could not apply earlier this year. But that's not part of your deal, but it is a resolution, and we're waiting. The Channel 4 News has contacted us and wants a response from us in regard to this change that came as a result of the first news conference, or the first thing on Channel 4. And so We're just gonna wait and make sure we can get reinstated before we make our final comment to Channel 4 News, which they will re-air on there. If you want to look it up, just look up Channel 4 streaming. You can Channel 4 streaming News 4 Utah, and you can pull up the segment they did on Brigham City and Peach Days, and the fact that we were banned from being able to sell lemonade, which is, we invested over $2,000 more in equipment last year just to do this year, and all we do is Peach Days. We spent over $10,000 in equipment, and we're going to do in excess of 1,000 lemonades this year. We're just told we couldn't do it anymore. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I don't miss this.
Is that part of your public comment?
It's just going to start right now. Thomas Peterson, 18 West, 85 South, Brigham City resident. First of all, Mayor, Council, thank you for your service. Thank you for the time and effort you dedicate into making Brigham City the great place it is to live, work, and play. I want to provide a little bit of public comment on an ordinance you're going to hear later. As an owner of an electrical contracting company, the outdoor lighting standards that you're looking at, I think, are pretty standard government policy. I really, really, really support the idea of dark sky and eliminating light pollution. But the policy you've created or that you have here before you tonight, I think is way, way, way too in the weeds. And so I would encourage you as you look at this, I'm not sure why it has the word sustainability in it. I don't know if that's just a buzzword we wanted to include. So I'd prefer that go away. But ultimately what I want to say is I agree with the concept. I agree with what you're trying to achieve. But there's no need for the government or the city to tell me what color of lights I can have. There's no need for the city to tell me how many lumens I can have per acre on my property. Really, everything is encapsulated in subsection C, item 2, where it says light trespass. All outdoor light fixtures, including security lighting, shall be aimed and shielded so that the illumination shall be confined to the property boundaries where the source is located. That covers everything. I agree, light should stay on your property. You want to see two bad examples? I encourage you to drive down 1100 South from the Canyon. Look at our community. You can tell exactly where Heritage Automotive is, and you can tell exactly where McDonald's is. They're two bad examples of site lighting. But I encourage you to drive down the freeway just past 1200 South in Ogden, coming north. There is an RV dealership there that you cannot see a single light coming from that property, but the entire parking lot is 100% well lit. So I like this idea. I like the concept. I really am grateful for it being brought to us because I think it's something we needed. But please don't make it so arduous that it costs people so much more money. There's no distinction because of where this sits in city code. There's no distinction between commercial and residential. So if I have a residential property, this would apply. That we shouldn't be talking about this kind of thing on in my opinion, in a residential property. The other thing that I just wanted to point out, if you do pass it, there is an issue, I believe, with 156.361C1A3. That last sentence, I think, is incorrect. But I'd encourage you to take a look at it. And again, it costs, even in residential, you have to get a design professional to design your lighting. That's not what we want to do in Brigham City. That's not something that we look to make homes more affordable. That's not something that would help. Oh, there's no chimes anymore?
Ding.
Oh, you guys are falling. I leave and this happens. Thank you for your service. Appreciate all you do.
I want to add one thing just to my father's comment in regards to this whole situation with Peach Days and everything. Again, Councilman Jeffries, I'm really sorry that Coca-Cola got dragged into this whole thing. That was Monica Holdaway that consistently dragged through Coca-Cola under the bus.
I'm sorry, but I don't think we should be using names,
Okay,
especially council member names or professionals, so that's it.
okay, the Box Elder Chamber CEO, has lied a number of times to us over the years. And people of Brigham City, I've been very involved in this whole thing. I was the face of the whole thing on the news. I've been dealing a lot in social media on this, and people are really fed up with Peach Days and the Chamber of Commerce and the things that they do in running that. And if you want to look at somewhere else where you could perhaps make a little more money, I think that the people would be really stoked to have the city back in charge of Peach Days, where elected officials are in charge and where they have, if they have a problem, that those people can make the change when they go to vote rather than just being stuck with whoever's in charge. That's all.
Thank you.
Let me respond real quick.
Dave,
No, hold on.
sorry. Hold on.
Hang on, wait a second.
Okay. We'll close public comments and then. Sorry.
Motion to close public comment.
Hey, we don't usually motion to close public comment, but we will close public comment.
Oh,
We won't go to a vote,
Oh,
no.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Gosh,
We're going western
I was
tonight.
finally doing something official.
We're off the reservation.
Okay, we'll, stop right now. Okay, we will open up to council member comments, and if you'll forgive me, I need to use the restroom, so you can start with council member Jeffries and move to his left.
Yes, I'm right over here. But for the record, I need, because it was brought up in public comment, this to be clear, what happened with the chamber and Coca-Cola has nothing to do with the city and my standing. That decision was made at Swire by leadership. To be clear, that decision was made earlier, before today's vote. I can tell you this, as record, Swire Coca-Cola did remove our sponsorship application off the table with the chamber. Therefore, we will no longer be a sponsor and a supporter of Peach Days. That was a decision my company made, not Dave Jeffries. Second, one of the reasons that that decision was made is that there was an offer on the table from the competitive partner. That offer was better than our offer, which at the end of the day, that was the real reason why we decided to pull it. Based on the bad press and everything that went on, we thought it was in the best interest for the Chamber of Commerce to move to a different direction, and that's why that decision was made. And that was it. It was not a Dave Jeffries decision or Brigham City. All I got.
Thank you, Councilmember Jeffries. And let me just apologize for being so informal. For you, Councilmember Jeffries. Councilmember Troxel.
I was able to participate in a number of activities that we had over the Memorial Day weekend. And I just want to give a big shout out to the volunteers and the different things that went on throughout the weekend throughout the city. We had a pickleball tournament going on for 3 days. We had a golf tournament going on 2 or 3 days. We had the Arts on Main and a number of activities going on. I was able to participate in almost all of them, either by family member or going by watching. And realizing that most of that was put on for the community by volunteers, the different organizations, and people interested in that. And it was a really good weekend. I think Brigham City really put for a really great event throughout the whole thing. I was able to go to the cemetery and happened upon a young man that was redecorating and started talking to him, and he wanted just a little bit of information, and I was able to just, our employees that weekend were all walking around the cemetery and helping a lot of the people, and it was really easy to just point out one of the employees and watch how enthusiastic he was about helping this young man. And so I just want to, and so I do think with a lot of this stuff going on social media, that Brigham City can come together and work together in many big things and make a future event really great, as long as we combine and let as many people in the community participate. And so I look forward to it.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith.
I have a bunch of just, thanks for the input, guys, talking today and all the work sessions that we've been through. That's proud to be part of the city council here and doing some of that and all of that stuff. And thank Member Jeffries for no vote on. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Jensen. Thank you, Councilmember.
Just a couple items. I'm excited in the new budget that we can get the PPAC down to 0. I don't know if everybody understands what's going on with that, but it's basically our rainy day fund, so that when we get a surge in power prices, we don't have to raise your rates that month and lower them the next month and raise them and lower them. Try to build that rainy day fund back up, and we're very excited that it's there and we can get rid of that tax or cost. Next thing, I went to the Bear River Water Conservancy District meeting after we voted to ask them to let us out. I was really disappointed that they wouldn't even have a serious discussion on it. That takes about $450,000 to $500,000 of tax money from Brigham City residents to send elsewhere. And I mean, we're talking about $70,000 here. They're taking $450,000. And we look at how much they've taken in their lifetime versus how much they've done for projects in Brigham City, and it's ridiculous. It's almost no projects in Brigham City, and we estimate about $5 million they've taken from us. In 30 years. With no projects here, I was really disgusted by that. On a lighter note, though, and I'm glad Breck's here, because I went to the museum, and they have a great exhibit on the Japanese immigrants here. And I bring up Breck because his grandpa was one of the ones that helped house them as they got out of the Topaz internment camps. And so if you haven't had a chance to go see it, it's a great exhibit. And the museum told us they actually have a few colleges that are trying to get it full time, or if they can share it with a few different colleges around town. So I thought that was a great feather in our cap for that, and especially Breck for helping out with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Hitt.
Bob, piggyback on what you just said regarding the Water Conservancy. There's continual deep dive, I think, by city leaders to see where there could be places in our costs where we can reduce with minimal impact on the citizens. I think that's quite a feather moving forward in doing that. We gave the citizens an opportunity to remove fluoride with cost saver. They chose not to, so the state removed it. So we're seeing changes occur, so it's not as if there are not attempts to try and find ways to minimize costs for all taxpayers too. We recently just talked about a new hire in the police department, and I saw I had a personal observation of some action that took place, and I really appreciated how they handled it. It was a large Doberman that got out and was acting. It wasn't aggressive, but it was barking, and it was a large Doberman. I have a little foo-foo dog. Nobody's afraid of that, but it'll bite you.
But the Doberman continued to approach, and when law enforcement got there, I really liked their take on it. I want to give them kudos. They had the new employee there, and the officer said that a lot of different ways they could approach this. The best way is just to stand by, control the situation until the owner gets there, and then the owner can put the dog away. Because if the dog moved forward in an aggressive manner, they were aggressive, and someone were bit, law enforcement were bit, then it might change the whole story of the scenario. So I just think the professionalism associated with trying to minimize, de-escalate the situation was just a great example of the professionalism that we do have with the employees that we do have on staff and on salary in the city. So that was a personal example I saw just this week, and I appreciated it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we will move on to our action items.
And Mayor, can I have 30 seconds, please? I want to take the opportunity to thank City Council for the budget process. We've obviously had a lot of active budget work meetings. I do want to just make one quick comment. I think maybe for future meetings. So obviously the City Council, if you sense hesitancy from me or the Finance Director in a reluctance to publicly talk about a cut, just so the Council's aware, we start the budget process in January, and there are a lot of things that we cut as the Mayor's office prior to that. And I would feel very, I don't feel it would be responsible for us as staff to recommend something without discussion with some of our department heads. So if we made a decision and say, hey, we're going to cut $70,000 out of the fire department, and I literally have not had a conversation with Chief Dillison about it, that's the hesitancy you're seeing from staff, just so you're aware. So I apologize if you're seeing that hesitancy from staff to make those recommendations to the council, but really it's a lack of opportunity to communicate with the department heads and the time that's been put forth. So, maybe for future, that's something we could work on as the City Council and as staff as we move forward. So I just want to make that apology and also tell you guys thank you. It's good opportunity for us to go back and forth and the public to see how the budget's set at the city. So thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. We next have before us 5 action items. The first one is a consideration of an ordinance amending the Brigham City Code, Chapter 156, establishing outdoor lighting standards to create a new section, 156.361, outdoor lighting standards, and amend section 156.447, site access and lighting plan required, and remove section 156.460, lighting. We'll invite Derek, and actually this is resident driven and suggested. So we'll invite our resident Dean Lester to help Mr. Euler present.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to quickly introduce just a couple of items, and then Dean is going to come and do the majority of the presentation. So like the Mayor said, Mr. Lester approached the city with the idea of updating these standards in our city code. Just quickly, and I won't take any punchlines from Mr. Lester, but this did go to the Planning Commission, I believe it was last week, and it passed Planning Commission 5-1. And obviously Mark Bradley was there and Dean and helped introduce that. So Dean, it's your turn.
I do appreciate the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the heavy weight that you have. But we've worked really hard on this outdoor lighting standard, and I believe it's a really good ordinance. We've met several times with the city attorney, and with the mayor, and with Derek, and with the planners to try to come up with a reasonable and coherent plan that will balance safety and sustainability. And what sustainability means is conservation. That means lower light in the community will help our public electricity systems be sustainable by maintaining a dark night sky. So that's where the sustainability came from. Essentially, the standards are fixtures. It describes the fixtures that will allow for a lack of light trespass. That will help without having fixtures defined. Light trespass is much more difficult. The second item is light trespass. The third one is total lumens, which is 100,000 per acre, which is very adequate for people to see whatever they want to see on an acre. And the fourth one is light quality. And what we've asked for is to not have very bright blue lights that agitate not only people's circadian rhythms, but also natural wildlife circadian rhythms. It would be preferred to be 3,000 K, or Kelvin, but because we wanted to have an appropriate white light that's available in a lot of fixtures, we went with 5,000 K. And then the last one is adaptive controls, which means that you can turn down parking lots and street lights when you don't need the light, like from 11 o'clock or midnight to 5 in the morning. So we didn't put on a time there, but we did want them to have the ability for adaptive controls so that they can conserve electricity and also reduce the light pollution. We have exemptions there, which I think cover the majority of the issues that would come about. And then we asked for people to look at a light calculation based upon lumens. And lumens are printed on the fixture or printed on the light itself. And so we went with lumens rather than candela or foot candle because you can use lumens in a simple addition. And so that's essentially the standard. The reason that we want the standard is to preserve our dark sky. As we grow, we will have more and more industrial operations. We will have more and more people in our city, and we're going to have more and more light pollution. One of the real reasons why I'm concerned about it is we are a neighbor to the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge, and that's a driving force in that we need to preserve the lack of light pollution to enhance the wildlife habitat that we greatly cherish here in Brigham City historically and hopefully into the future. Are there any questions?
Council? Derek, do you have any additions? Or I do. From the public comment that was made, I've reviewed, so it'd be 156. Let me get it here. 156, what's the right section? 361. It's in the ordinance itself, which should obviously be codified in the code. And C, under standards, 1 fixtures, A, talking about fully shielded. On bullet number 3, let me just read it. It says, if mounted on or attached to a building or structure other than a pole or a sign, the bottom of the light source, which includes or including all lenses, diffusers, reflectors, similar elements, must be at least 2 inches higher than the bottom of the fixture housing so as not to be visible from any point on the property. I do agree that I think the language should say from any, so as not to be visible from any point off of the property instead of on the property. So what we're talking about here, probably the most common fixture that we're discussing is pull into a canopy for a gas station. and obviously there's lighting in that canopy. What this section is saying is the light fixture itself will not protrude below that canopy. It has to at least be offset by 2 inches so that direct light trespass is not emitting past property. So I actually personally do agree with the public comment that was made. It should be any point off the property, not on the property. So,
And I agree with that too.
okay. But obviously there were some more comments made. The council wants to talk about that. So,
And this is residential or commercial?
it applies to both. Yep. So that's a very rich question that we had spent a lot of hours on, is our committee. So I could talk a long time about the residential and commercial elements that were discussed with the committee. And let me remind the council, so the committee was the mayor and I, city attorney, Dean, community development director, Paul, and city planner, Mark. I think we met probably 5 or 6 times over about a 6-month period. We've been working on this a lot. And that question of whether this ordinance should apply to residential or not residential, I can go into some of the details, maybe some highlights, but obviously the recommendation that the committee put forth to the planning commission and the council is that we do feel that these elements should apply to residential. And obviously when you're thinking about residential lighting, and let me get the specific section here in the code. When we're talking about fixtures, anything that is below 1,000 lumens is not regulated whatsoever in this ordinance, commercially or residentially. So when we're talking about a residential fixture, we do have residential fixtures that are greater than 1,000 lumens of output, but that is a big fixture that is very bright. So really the goal here was, if we have a civil matter, which we do as a city at times between residences and lighting, that if it's below, so security lighting in somebody's backyard that's on, their home, very few of those lights that are security, they're going to flare in the neighbor's window, are actually 1,000 lumens of output or greater. But if we were to deal with a situation like that in our residential areas of our city, this ordinance would allow us the ability to obviously do something as a city. So, and there might be the difference of opinion with that, but there are very, very few residential fixtures. But, you buy off the shelf at Home Depot or Ace Hardware or South Fork Hardware that are greater than 1,000 lumens of output in the residential setting.
The concern that I have about excluding residential, I think residential is where an awful lot of interference occurs between neighborhoods. And security lighting, if you have a half an acre of light or a half an acre of property, you get 500,000 lumens. And you just have to contain them to your property. So you can light your entire property with very adequate lighting to see at any time. But you can light it as well as you would light a parking lot in Kent or the Amazon lot that you're coming up on the freeway. You can light it in that fashion, but you need to maintain, light trespass so that it contains on your own property and doesn't spill over and make your neighbors have to use blackout windows. I mean, they shouldn't have to do that in a residential area. So I believe that that's an appropriate strategy, is to have both commercial and residential, because this is written so that commercial will have adequate light to operate. And if it's written so that commercial has adequate light to operate, you have that same opportunity to light your own home in that fashion.
Well, this may be a real stupid question because I have to irrigate 2 a.m.
Right.
Wednesday night.
Uh-huh.
I don't have electrical ports in every corner of my big, deep backyard.
Right.
I need a big spotlight that covers the whole entire thing.
Well, you know,
And so I can't, and for security reasons, because I do live alone, have to have these sensors and these big spotlights that cover a lot of property. There's sensor motion, and so are we putting something in to make sure that when people to cover that sort of thing? Like I can see like a time period, like all night long or something like that. A light
well,
not needing to be on.
Yeah, so I think that
But
Yeah,
I'm worried about,
the goal here is fixtures less than 1,000 lumens. Nothing applies. No, the ordinance doesn't apply in the residential setting. And obviously, you know, we did a little bit of research on the lumen output for most residential security lighting fixtures. Absolutely, you can buy a fixture greater than 1,000 lumens all day long. Just not real common. Bigger parcels probably pretty common, but let in the situation that you're discussing, if the fixture is greater than 1,000 lumens, then the shielding applies. If the fixture is less than 1,000 lumens in a residential setting, then no shielding applies. That's essentially all it's saying. So if you need a ginormous light in your backyard to light everything up because of the situation that you described, and it's greater than 1,000 lumens, then the code would just say that has to be shielded so the light doesn't trespass past your property. That's all it's saying. So does that make sense?
and to be completely honest, I think Tyler has overestimated the number of the amount of light per lumen. Okay. A 60-watt bulb is about 750 lumens. So your security structures would probably be a few hundred lumen, and they would require shielding. And just
1,000.
Or 1,000.
1,000. Yeah.
1,000 lumens. Okay. And Robin, to address your issue with lights that come on when people walk past or when the wind blows, they come on and off all the time, security lights of that nature. If they're shining on your property into your neighbor's windows, they're very annoying, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're doing your irrigation. I have a neighbor that does that, okay? And he's a block away, and it lights up my front yard just fine. So, well, through the block, through the block. So, yeah, you can hang lights like bubble lights or something out in your yard, and it gives you very adequate light for irrigation and very adequate light for security. In fact, really bright lights make your eyes so accustomed to a very small pupil that you really can't see anybody in the shadows. So it isn't as secure as lower light. And that's been demonstrated time and time again. But nevertheless, I don't want to, we've been here a long time, and I don't want to go on and on. I can, and I don't want to. Sir?
sorry, if I could say this, I tried to read this packet over the weekend about this change. I'm not an electrician, don't pretend to be one, but I feel like I'm a smart guy. I'm confused. I don't know what 1,000 lumens means to 3,000. Don't know. Therefore, and if you guys are working on this for months or whatever, great. So first I heard about it and over the weekend when I was reading the packet.
Okay.
And because I'm not comfortable with it, I would propose that we table this so I can, at least I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not educated enough to make a proper call on this at this time. And even Robin's point, I'm a little confused of how you. I understand most of this is for new business, et cetera, but
That would absolutely be a motion that could be taken, Councilmember Jeffries.
I make a motion to table this resolution to a later date.
We have a motion to table. We have a second.
I think that's a good idea.
A second by Councilmember Smith. So we're going to go for a vote on this. If it doesn't pass, then we'll move on to other motions. This motion to table, this isn't roll call, so it's just majority. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Motion will be tabled, and we'll work on it some more with staff and council and bring it back at a later date.
Mayor, if I could, to prepare staff for an upcoming discussion, is there something the council would like prepared for us to be able to, as staff, to present any questions or concerns?
Planning Commission had a discussion,
Mm-hmm.
and
Those comments are in your packet. You know, I will make one quick comment on residential lighting. And by the way, exactly what you're talking about residentially was said in our committee. And, you know, as a city, it's sometimes dealing with things are difficult. And I will say that, you know, it's really hard to police everything. And this ordinance applying to the residential section absolutely is policing what I would consider mostly a civil matter. But the complaints that come to City Hall, my neighbor is shining their lights right in my window for 6 hours a night. It's really difficult as a city employee, as a code enforcement officer, to look at them and say, that's a civil matter. The city can do absolutely nothing. I'm sorry, have a nice day. So this attempt in the code section is trying to help us as staff that are trying to deal with what I would consider is mostly a civil matter, a pathway forward. Whether those limits are set correctly, obviously debatable. Could we move it to 2,000 or 3,000 lumens? Absolutely. That discussion can be had. But I think just so the council's aware, we're looking for a way in this that if there's a situation where two folks are having a civil issue with each other and one is shining a 10,000 lumen light in their neighbor's yard for 5 hours a night because they're in a pissing match about something, we're trying to be able to help police that. That's why this applies. That's why the residential section is here. So, you know, there can be a bunch of back and forth, but yeah, sorry, I took a liberty there, but my question still stands. What can we do to help prepare the council?
Your point, Derek, regardless if you ever, what you do with the resolution or what you change, civil matters never going to go away. Someone's always going to be upset about a light shining in my face. I don't know if it's 1,000 lumens or 50. I would never know that. I would just be pissed off. Look, my neighbor has a spotlight that goes off every time he drives by. And it's brighter than the brightest lights I've ever seen. It's okay. I've learned to live with it. But to your point, it's a civil matter. I don't think that's ever going to change. And therefore, changing the code, I don't think it's going to ever resolve that issue. It just gives you a little leg to stand on. But at the end of the day, people are always going to be upset. So I don't have enough questions for you at this time, but I'll review and I'll send you some. But I just don't have that knowledge. I'm just not smart enough.
can you give us some, maybe come back and or forward us maybe some examples of what 1,000 lumens is and kind of how much it would cover, or
The type of fixtures.
yeah, or what type of covering? I mean, just so that we can kind of see what that is, because
Yep. I
I
might
might
ask
be able to, like-
Representative Peterson to do it too.
And I think the dark sky thing is very, yeah, I think that's what we need to do, but I just want to make sure, just like everything else, this is what cover that. And appreciate your time and effort put in by everybody that's done it, because I just make sure I understand this looks like and how this affects
It will,
someone, because if I have a light at the top of my house that shines down and over a little bit, I mean,
you know, I personally believe that by adopting the ordinance, we will give guidance to people who are developing houses, and they will have to put in fixtures that actually shield. We're not going to go back out into the city and every person that is violating this, but as we go forward, we will not have people that say, okay, we have a property right. We can do what we want with light. And I don't think that that's appropriate. We already have an ordinance that has some subdivisions that have restrictions. We wanted to clarify that to where all of our city would maintain a dark sky attitude and kind of a rural nature as we grow. And that's the real idea here. The 2 pages that we moved down to, I mean, I started out with 10 pages. The city attorney really has consolidated down to 2 pages to try to just cover the important points in dark sky. So I would be happy to meet with any of you at any time to discuss this. And thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thanks, Dean. So we'll bring types of fixtures and types of shielding.
and maybe a little bit more understanding. He mentioned blue light.
Yeah, so Kelvin, I can go into detail there. So Kelvin is the color temperature of the light. So 3,000 is like more yellow. 5,000 is more like of a blue or a white. Yeah, so a lot of most cities, that was a public comment that was made in the planning commission, is 3,000, no greater than 3,000. Actually, a lot of city ordinances are no greater than 3,000. This is probably one of the least restrictive city ordinances that I've seen, moving it up to 5. And to be honest with you, Dean and I had some very healthy discussion about that. So, yeah, so we're being less restrictive in that sense with Kelvin color, and I understand, I get the point of that was made in the public comment. If it's not emitting, there's no light trespass. What does it matter? And I understand that too. So.
I would just as we move on. As we move on, I would just remind council that whomever you meet with, don't be more than 2 at a time if you go with a group or with a companion, whatever you want to call it. If you meet with somebody about this to learn more about it, say y'all show up down at a house west of the hospital one day.
Go to your house.
Well, your compound, my compound, yes.
I'll come help me irrigate.
But I would just again, it's a violation of open public meeting rules to be 3 of you at a time. So even outside of City Hall, talking about something that we're going to be deliberating. All right. Thank you. Number 2 is a consideration of resolution amending the power purchase adjustment rate. Mr. Cotter.
Ryan's eye.
Quick. This will be a quick one. Good.
All right, so the resolution before you tonight is to change utility rates for the electric, to remove not to remove, but to set the P-PAC rate at 0. So that had been proposed in the mayor's budget, but because of where the rate stabilization fund is currently, Mayor Bott instructed me to come and ask the council to remove it earlier, to remove it for the month of June.
But Matt was able to do that with the Water Conservancy.
Okay, so that's the proposal.
So it'll be removed,
So it'll be
in
set to
June?
0. It'll be
set to zero
So yeah, I
Set
catch
to
myself
zero.
all the time. So it'll be for the month of June. So the bills that
From
the
June
customer
on.
will receive in July.
July. Okay.
And just, I hate to beleaguer this, but just because we have said remove in public comment, we need to remember that the P-PAC is in our ordinance to be there. Another reminder is it can go in the positive or the negative. The negative, it would go if for some reason current administration is able to get power rates down so low that the rate we're buying power at is under what we have set by ordinance, then we would be able to set that at a negative to reflect that. So I just want to make sure that's said in public comment.
Good point.
And there's an opportunity, I mean, set it to 0, there's an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, as we've talked about, that is the council, the policies we set with the rate stabilization fund, there are certain criteria that have to be met, and we would come back, obviously, and ask the council to put it a different rate than 0.
Okay, we'd entertain a motion.
I move that we set that amend the power purchase adjustment rate.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Smith. We have a second by Councilmember Jensen. This is a resolution, so this will be roll call. We'll start with Councilmember Jeffries and move to his left.
Jeffries is an aye.
Robbins and I?
Ryan is aye.
That's an aye.
Dave's an aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 3 is consideration of an ordinance enacting a temporary land use regulation pursuant to Utah State Code 10-9E-504, temporarily prohibiting all commercial and residential solar institutions as explained in the ordinance. And Mr. Cooper's not here. Are you taking this?
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Euler will present.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Council. So, it was
Oh,
exactly.
he is online, so I apologize, Tom. You are online. I didn't see that. So if we need his input.
Yep. So, remind the City Council, we put a pause exactly 4 months ago on commercial solar. And as we've been working, and this is a very complex issue, in other words. So, there obviously the original pause that we put on the commercial solar had nothing to do with land use. It was just Title 50 of the City Code, which talked about essentially the interconnect with commercial solar. So as we've continued working on this and continued researching this subject, it continually gets complex. So we're trying to essentially sync our land use code and our interconnect or solar arrays within our city, and we're just simply asking for some more time. We honestly have done a ton of research within our state, within other municipal jurisdictions, and we've been doing some research outside of our state with folks that have more solar than maybe we do in the state of Utah. So the temporary land use ordinance will give us 6 months to adequately study and obviously look into those issues. I fully expect to be back in front of you, although the land use section does have to go to the Planning Commission by the 17th of July. We are really, really close. But because that temporary ordinance expired, we weren't ready exactly right now, so we're asking for this temporary land use and the extension. Obviously, that's the next item, the extension of the Title 50. And so, obviously we'll bring those back together. So we would be ready for the second meeting in July. So because we've got to get the Planning Commission first, most likely you will see this back in front of you the first meeting in August. So any specific questions? I did want to bring one thing up. This is not related, neither of these are related to residential solar. So we're talking commercial solar. Residential solar will still be available for our residents to continue through that process. And obviously, any
Multifamily, it is multifamily residence.
it does include multifamily residential. And obviously, that subject right there is very, very interesting. And we are finding out, really, that subject right there is our hiccup. And we're working through that right now, whether those are owner occupied or an actual lease tenant is a very interesting subject that you will hear a lot more from me about. So, any other?
Why does the ordinance say residential? Solar, says all commercial and residential.
In the residential solar world, it's for the multifamily. That's essentially what we're asking for in the ordinance. So it is a residential setting. When you're a multifamily, it's not just pure commercial. So that's the reason the residential word is in there.
In the packet on this, it does say excluding single family and townhome.
Yes.
But it doesn't say that here on the.
Correct.
Agenda, whatever.
Yes.
But the title of the ordinance, residential.
In the language specifically in the ordinance, it exempts residential, single-family residential, and townhomes.
So we've got,
Well,
I was just gonna ask council, we've got two ordinances here, or a resolution, an ordinance and a resolution that are similar and connected. I didn't know whether you wanted to have three and four, if you were clear on the presentation, the brief presentation on 4, enough to make two separate motions, but do them at one after another instead of having another presentation.
I promise second presentation will be really short. I'll say ditto.
And will this,
Same thing, right?
will this land use portion of it stop ones that have begun?
No, any application, any application that has been put forth prior to today and the city council taking action resides under the ordinance of when that application was submitted to the city.
Not retro.
Yep.
Have we had anybody ask about when this, that says that this is putting them off? I mean, have we had anybody approach us and have concerns about extending this? Or concerns about the pause that we already have?
I think the best way for me to answer that question is we do have a multifamily residential applicant or development, but that has been in discussion with the city, but there is no application that has been sent to the city. And really, I guess just a little bit more on that, some of why we're asking for a temporary land use ordinance hold is related to that specific multifamily and really the lack of information for the city to move forward with those in the future that needs clarification. But there's been discussions with one, but no application submitted.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that let's we'd entertain a motion on 3 and then a motion on 4, unless you'd like to explain.
We don't think it's going to take 6.
We're
still in, I think, I'll cover.
There is no reason I won't be back to you in the first meeting in August.
So the first motion, or the first action item again, or number 3, is an ordinance enacting a temporary land use regulation pursuant to Utah State Code 10-9A-504, temporarily prohibiting all commercial and residential solar installations as explained in the ordinance. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Smith. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Jeffries. This will be by roll call, so we'll start with Councilmember Hip, move to his right.
Dave's an aye. Jensen's an aye.
Ryan's aye.
Robbins, aye.
Jeffries and I.
Thank you. Motion passes. Number 4 is a consideration of a resolution authorizing the extension of the solar application pause dated February 6, 2025 for 6 additional months in order to facilitate the necessary amendments to other sections of the city code and policy.
Moved.
Okay, we have a motion. I'm going to include one of you as a second. We have a motion by Councilmember Jeffries, second by Councilmember Hip. Is there any other questions? Not, we'll go from Mr. Jeffries in a roll call to Mr. Hip.
Jeffries is an aye.
Robbins, aye.
Ryan's aye.
Jensen's an aye.
Dave's an aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Number 5 is a consideration for a revision to Chapter 9 of the Employee Policy and Procedure Manual, allowing additional leave for school resource officers. And we will have our city administrator present.
Yeah, I just clicked the wrong button on my computer. Sorry. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. So, in our employee policy manual, we're asking City Council to include a new section in our leave time and that is specific to our school resource officers. So the council is aware the Brigham City Corporation has 2 school resource officers, one at the middle school, Box Elder Middle School, one at the high school, sorry, Ryan went there. I was looking at him. That's why I said that. So, Box Elder High School. So the reason we're having this discussion is, frankly, being a school resource officer as a police officer is not always what police officers want to do. And so as
Don't get summers off.
they don't get summers off. That's something we actually talked about as one of the elements. So what we're really trying to do here is actually create a little bit of incentive for some of our police officers that are willing to take the assignment and be in that unit in our school. So as the chief and I and obviously the chief staff, the mayor, our finance folks, we've done a lot of research on this, and there's a lot of different things we are seeing across the state of Utah that jurisdictions, cities are doing to help incentivize the resource officers working in school. And Ryan, you're absolutely right. Some of them actually do give their school resources the summer off, or school resource officers the summer off, and pay them as if they'd worked the full 2,080 hours. But after a lot of deliberation, and the chief's recommendation here is that we would front our school resource officers an additional 40 hours of police leave on May 1st of each calendar year. And those hours would have to be used by April 30th of the following year. And if at any point in time, one of our officers, either quits, is terminated, or decides they don't want to do the job anymore, they would forfeit that leave immediately. So, and the school resource officer pay or additional leave time would not be subject to any of the other payout benefits or provisions that are associated with other leave accruals or leave benefits that the city currently already has, i.e. Annual or personal leave. So maybe just real quick, just so the council's aware of some of the other things that we talked about. Obviously, summers off was one. A differential in just pay was another. I think the mayor, the chief, and myself forwarded this recommendation to the council because there's not a net budget effect. There's obviously a potential effect of productivity of having somebody off for an additional week, but no direct effect to the budget. And anyway, any other questions? Chris is here too if there's questions specifically about the job. So
I guess the only thing that I remember that we haven't mentioned that maybe one or two other places is they hire specific ROs. So they put out and police department hires, they're looking for specific SRO. That's his job they're hiring for.
Then in the summertime, are they just, like a patrol?
They're on patrol. Sometimes we do special assignments if we're backlogged in detectives. We have, things that need to, it's really, hey, where are we hurting the worst and where do we need the most help? And, it may be a patrol shift, and it absolutely is a patrol shift if we're down or we're understaffed, but really use that resource for the best benefit of the city.
Well, do you need them to add that the extra 40 hours should be taken when the school is on vacation? That way they don't disrupt actual school time.
That'd be Chris, you want to come weigh in on that? That's something that we did not discuss, and I actually don't know what you do when a school resource officer is on vacation while the school's in, so.
Yeah, we actually discussed that internally in the police department a little bit. The reason we kind of moved away from that is, well, I guess to answer your question first of what they are off during school, what happens. Usually they're covered by the other SRO will kind of cover both schools. Because they're already assigned elementary schools in addition to the school that they're at, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because I'm all for it, I think it's great idea. But to manage that, officer getting more time off, I think if you're going to add it, I think to make it easy on yourself and say, okay, we're going to give you an extra 40 hours, an extra week off, make it on you to administer it, take it in the summer or Christmas or something where it doesn't affect.
Yeah, and that's kind of the general idea. We just didn't want to put that in as a hard rule. The idea is when they're out the spring break, those officers come back to patrol for a week, and how much do they really get done? Well, they could use some of that leave in addition to their annual leave during that time. Fall break, same thing, right? Christmas break, I guess they call it winter break now. Same thing. Summer break.
Maybe the recommendation. I love the input. I think that's something that the chief could handle in a departmental policy, especially if he has an issue.
So if it's easy for you, it doesn't mean I don't. Really up to you and the police department to manage that, but I think it's a great idea.
Are they so if you go and hire a lateral, they come over so they got 5 years experience in their 5 years. How does that?
So right now, the through our SROs that we have, we're already within the department.
Okay.
They were assigned to that position.
Okay.
Right.
And they lost in a game of like B did end up in that. Yeah. So. Yeah,
but to the problem that Derek was talking, just a little bit. To go to the problem that Derek was talking about, just this week I saw that Weber County Sheriff's Office opened up a direct hire for an SRO because they don't have anybody within the department who will do the job, wants to do the job, right? That's kind of the uphill battle we're fighting just a little bit. It's kind of a nationwide problem, actually.
Yeah. We're bringing this to you as our first step. If we're unsuccessful, I promise you I'll be back.
Good difference. So as I'm looking at the employee, benefits there. So if they're a 5-year employee, they have their 14 days plus. Yeah, forfeit that if they leave that.
Yeah, and there's other, like, part of the reason that it's tough to get them a volunteer for the SRO is if you're on patrol, work 5 days, 12-hour shifts, but then you get 5 days off, right? But these SROs are 8 hours. Kind of the least favorite schedule in police world is 5 days, right? But that's what the SROs are doing because they need to school every day that the school, as many days as the school is open.
Well, frankly, I think they're going to the special events too, aren't they? The games and
they are. And they'll even travel with team if they're going, if the school wants, if the school wants the officer there, they'll travel with the football team. Right.
I did want to mention publicly that we have a really good relationship with our school district, and the Box Elder School District does pay 50% of the wage for both of these employees. So
I'm glad you said that. I was going to ask you to do that.
Fully encumbered.
Yep, full cost. benefits
So that
everything.
includes overtime and everything.
Yep.
All business overtime.
I know, it's like, what,
But now
and retirement, too, I don't understand that either. Is that death?
Commander, so I was on the committee meeting when we were talking about this. Derek mentioned a few other different options. Have you floated this idea of the week's pay or week off with the resource officers and got any reaction, or what would they?
Yeah, we've talked to them about it, and they both are very on board. They're grateful to have that extra benefit. So at least with the two that we have right now, it's an incentive for them, right? So,
Okay. I like what what Dave Jeffries was saying about take it when they're not in school, I think, and leave it at the chief's discretion, but I think we should push towards that. I think it's sense.
You've exhausted your questions, we'll entertain a motion.
I motion that we approve the revision to Chapter 9 of the Employee Policy and Procedure Manual as discussed.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Jensen, a second by Councilmember Jeffries. This is, I don't think it's a roll call.
No.
All those in favor? Aye. Those didn't sound like it. Thank you. Motion passes. All right, we'll turn the time over to Tom Cotter for our fraud risk assessment presentation. While he's coming up, I will say, and this isn't we have a lot of officers that would do really well at the SR position. We also have a lot of officers that would do well that doesn't fit either their schedule or what they envision their police officer career to do. So I think this is going to be a great benefit for them and put out what they do it every 2 years or yearly? What is the special type of rotation?
When we get them in there, they stay in.
Long as they-
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time you get a rookie.
You get the right guy in there, he's going to stay for a while, right, Chris? If the guy thinks it's a great fit for him, gets there and he says up to 7 years and it's not for him, then he can opt out and go back into regular police work.
Carlson's going to stay there for the next 20. He's going to retire there. Maybe he's listening to me.
Hey, sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
No, that's a lot more interesting than this. So the fraud risk assessment, it's a requirement from the State Auditor's Office of Utah. There are 395 points possible. For those of you like the office, they're very equivalent to shrew bucks. So of that, we get 375. The only category we don't receive any points on, it says, does the entity have a formal internal audit function? We don't have a formal audit function. We do internal audits, though, as needed. My office handles those, but as this is written, we don't get any points for that. So we qualify as a very low risk level as far as a fraud risk assessment goes for the State Auditor's Office. So there's different questions on here. So we get points for Councilmember Jensen having a CPA, for his training requirements that he has to go through. We get points about because we now have an audit committee. We get points for that. It just goes through different policies. Do you have a conflict of interest in procurement, ethical behavior, travel, credit purchasing cards, IT and computer security? Just different things that obviously are concerning that I can say with confidence that the city was already doing before this fraud risk assessment came about. That was it. That's just to present to the council. Any questions to me about our fraud risk assessment?
This is a yearly.
Yeah. Yep.
You said you do your fraud audits just when you feel like when it's necessary. When do you feel like it's?
I mean, so the internal audit function, it's more of like, hey, we have a concern either brought to us by department from a citizen about maybe whatever. We've looked at the swimming pool, like an example being we had a complaint, talked about staffing at the swimming pool. Like, seems like, man, there's a lot of kids there. Why are we doing this? So we went and looked at it and made some recommendations back to the pool about, hey, this is what we observed, and away from there we went.
Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
Highest score we've ever got. Good work, Tom.
2 years in a row. You need an extra week of vacation too? Thanks,
Okay.
Tom.
We would like to entertain a motion to move into closed session to discuss property
Purchase, sell, or lease of real property.
So moved. We have a motion by Councilmember Jensen, second by Councilmember Smith, and we roll call in? Yes. Start with Councilmember Hipp and move to his right.
Reeves and I.
Matt's and I.
Ryan's I.
Robbins, aye.
Jeffries is an I.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody that's coming. Dean, thanks so much for your work.